is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated. The NFL is back and we're ready to cover it from head to toe. Well, the first game was so exciting that it was a toe stop. I mean, you just had to understand. I mean, it was just a toe jam. Never mind. Welcome back to Total Football Talk. Well, welcome everybody, one and all, to the Spectacular Football Spectacular. I love using that word twice on a sentence. I didn't notice that. Of Total Football Talk. Yes, I am one of the co-hosts of this program, Cole Johnson, a.k.a. the mad scientist and EP extraordinaire and the EP of all EPs. And I am joined by the other co-host of this program who does a wonderful job of hosting D. Will in the Evening. Let me see. In or out sports debate, Commander's Gridiron Report, and even this show too. Ladies and gentlemen, the man that you know as D. Willie, Drew Willingham. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great today, brother. Glad to see you again. You know, we have shifted back to normal because, as we say, it's that time again. It's time for Total Football Talk.
It most certainly is. Yes, and this is episode number 54. We're so glad that we are here to do this for the second episode of the second year of this program. And since we're excited because the NFL's returned, let's get right to it. Opening drive, please.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Great.
Of course, all 32 teams played during the weekend. Not everybody played on Sunday or Monday. In fact, not even a game took place on, well, a game did take place on Thursday, but there was one that took place on Friday. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we actually had a Friday game, the first to take place in South America, let alone Brazil, as the green-clad Green Bay Packers traveled to Sao Paulo to meet up with green-clad Philadelphia Eagles. Sorry, Shield, I had to give you that side eye and a rock eyebrow. Well, anyway, it was actually a pretty good game. It was nip and tuck, back and forth. I was actually surprised. But the final score was 34-29. The Eagles took it over the Packers. All right, let's see. The particulars, Jalen Hurts, he was 20-34, 278 yards. Threw a couple touchdowns, but he unfortunately threw a couple of picks. He also lost a fumble. Also carried the ball 13 times for 33 yards. But his big help came from one Saquon Barkley. 24 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 receptions of 23 yards, and 1 touchdown via the air. And he wasn't alone, of course. You had A.J. Brown, 5 receptions, 119 yards, and a touchdown. Devontae Smith, he chipped in for 7 receptions for 84 yards. You had on defense Zach Bond. Gave you 15 tackles, 11 of them solo, and 2 sacks on the day. Now, unfortunately, on the other side, you have Jordan Love. Uneven performance, 17 of 34, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. And he unfortunately went out with an injury late in the game. Josh Jacobs, the new pickup. Well, we talked about the new pickup of the Eagles. The new pickup of the Packers, 16 carries, 84 yards on the ground, 2 receptions, 20 yards to the air. Congratulations to Josh. Jaden Reed, he was the pass catcher extraordinaire for the Packers. 4 receptions, 138 yards, and a touchdown. And you had Jair Alexander and Xavier McKinney, each with a pick. Now, in this game, what stood out to you, and what are your thoughts of the Packers and the Eagles?
The Packers are going to have a hard time this year stopping the run, like a very, very hard time. That looked very bad. I mean, Saquon Barkley put up 2 touchdowns on the ground, 1 receiving as well. And, a big part of that is because, there's no defense on the other side as far as the run defense goes. They did okay with stopping the pass a little bit. There's definitely some work that needs to be done with that overall. But the Packers, really need to work on their run defense. And if they can, it make up for any of that during the season. Another big part of this game, too, is Jordan Love got hurt. The severity of that is still, in question. But overall, that's the biggest thing that I saw that was the takeaway was the defense. You give up 34 points on the day, and a lot of that was based on the fact that you had a running back on the other side that looked like he turned back the clock a few years. And that was something that we talked about, for several weeks leading up to this, that if they're going to have a chance, the Eagles are, in having a true upgrade at that running back position, then we're going to have to see the Saquon Barkley of old. And he turned back the clock, but this is game 1. The weather is also nice. As it gets colder and as he gets more miles put on his body throughout the season, we may see, the regression of Saquon. But to start out hot in the week that he did, big for the Eagles to get that type of win. But also it says a lot about the run defense for the Packers, and also the stipulations of the field, the conditions of the field with the grass and stuff getting caught in their cleats a lot. It kind of affected the game a little bit too. But I would say this right here was a result of a terrible run defense that was on display by the Packers.
Yeah, and that was the only thing that gives me pause about this team. It was just, I was like, all right, they're young at receiving core, they're young-ish at quarterback, but they're showing some signs of growth, and it showed some signs of improvement as the last year waned to its end. And of course, we saw what they did to the Cowboys in the wild card round. So offensively, I felt fine. I hope they addressed it, and they did. They addressed depth with the offensive line, and that seemed to be pretty good. But even though the secondary is all right, and the linebacking core seems to be pretty good, I just didn't feel good about that defensive front. And that was the one thing that gave me pause. Other than that, I really like this team, but that's the one thing that gives me pause. And hopefully that will be tightened as the weeks and months go on. But yeah, they got to do much better. And as for Barkley, now, funny that they played in South America, because actually South America is in their winter at the moment. But it wasn't cold in Sao Paulo. It was actually pretty temperate, and it was warm, and it was comfortable. But you raise a really good point. When the miles get put on and the hits weigh, let's see if he can put forth 24 carries, 109 yards in weeks 16, 17, and 18. That's a really good point. That's a really good point, actually. But yes, 1-0 for the Eagles, 0-1 for the Packers, and Malik Willis might have to be the starter for a few weeks. Ooh, man. I'm not liking that. All right, let's get to Sunday, shall we? All right, the Steelers. They cut the Falcons at 18-10. I'm sorry. Woo, long night, early morning. No, it wasn't. It's this game. Good Lord. I mean, straight up Dunster Pelican worthy of a game. Horrible. Oh my gosh. For the exception, and you pointed this out when we talked yesterday, for the exception of certain members of the Steelers defense, this game was terrible. Justin Fields, 17-23, 156 yards, 14 carries, 57 yards. The best thing about his day is that he turned the ball over none. That's the best thing about his performance. But I'll give it to the offense of the Steelers. They gave you 137 yards on the ground, so that bode well for them. George Pickens, he gave you 85 yards on 6 carries. I mean, 6 receptions in the air. So they tried to do balance, but obviously the ground game was where it really mattered for the Steelers. As for the Falcons, and then on the other end, on the other side of the ball, you had Dante Jackson and Deshaun Elliott each with a pick on poor Kirk Cousins, who was 16-26, 155 yards, and a touchdown with those 2 picks. But I would say the play of the game was T.J. Watt, 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses, and a fumble recovery. Your thoughts on this ridiculously bowling shoe ugly game with the Steelers and the Falcons?
Boswell kicked into victory, and you and I were talking about that yesterday. I mean, I called it. We were in the first half, and I said, cold, like it looks like Boswell's going to kick them to victory. Russell is not going to get his job back that he was given and never actually did. Like, which looking back on it in history, I'm sure it's been done, but with the media at the level that it is now, I don't recall a time where somebody was named the starting quarterback for game 1, didn't even start, and then lost their job before game 2, because it's possible that could happen. I mean, with all jokes aside, it really is. I mean, I'm going back through our text thread right now, and yes, even the other stat that I'd pulled out to you was the fact that, you know, in the second half, Kirk Cousins was 2 for 6 with 11 yards and an interception. You know, the amount of money that they paid Kirk Cousins, and you're going to get that type of production in the second half, that's a big red flag for the remainder of this season, like, and how things are going to pan out, because it's not looking good so far. And when you play a team to the magnitude that you're playing in the Steelers, the only thing that they really had going for them besides their kicker was their defense, because TJ Watt was playing absolute video game yesterday. You know, he came out with a vengeance. This Steelers defense, if they go far, you know, this year, it's going to be solely based on their defense, because they've got so many issues to address at quarterback. But the big issue that they really have, it's not as bad as some other teams we'll talk about here in a minute, is they need to do some more work with that offensive line, because the quarterback was doing a lot of dancing yesterday. Regardless if you had Fields or Wilson in there, it just goes to show that it wasn't all Kenny Pickett last year. And before that, when Big Ben was still around, we already were seeing the regression of the offensive line. Things, if they want to improve offensively and put the numbers back up, they're going to have to make some more adjustments with that offensive line.
I agree. And you remember the adjustment that Roethlisberger made. I mean, I never seen a guy make so many 2-step drop passes because offensive line's lack of ability to protect. Oh, yes, and thank you for mentioning Boswell. 6 field goals in the game. So he accounted for all of the Steelers' points. But yes, I agree with you. And as far as Cousins is concerned, you better start looking over his shoulder now, because Michael Penix Jr. might be starting sooner rather than later. Because yes, the Falcons did not pay all that money to him to have such a putrid second half of this game as yesterday. 100% agree with you there. A game that's a little better, thankfully. The Cardinals visited Western New York. They played the Bills. The Bills took it at home, 34-28. The pleasing stat for me would be Josh Allen, 18-23, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did lose a fumble. That's the only mistake he made. 9 carries, 39 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. I love that. I love that stat line right there. Not the fact that he ran, but the fact that everything was judicious. Greg Rousseau, 3 sacks on the day, helping the Bills get 4 on the day. Poor Kyler Murray. poor Kyler Murray, who was 21 of 31, 162 yards. He did throw a touchdown, and he did run for 57 yards on 5 carries. And then you had probably one of the 2 special teams plays du jour that were not blocks. DJ Dallas, he returned a kickoff, 96 yards for a touchdown. All right, your thoughts on the Bills going to 1-0 with a 34-28 victory over the Cardinals?
Did it again. But I know it feels good for Von Miller to get his first sack in nearly 2 years. You know, with him being out last year due to injury. It was supposed to be a swan song last year, but he's back this year to kind of rewrite the wrongs of how last year ended for him. You know, Josh Allen also injures his left hand in the contest as well, so we'll see how much of an effect that has going forward. Right. You know, with all that being said, at least it's still early in the season. If this was like November, December, I'd be really concerned because of how cold the weather is. But Kyler Duty, man, they had the lead in the first half. Yes, you know, it was the tale of 2 halves for this game. The first half, the Cardinals were playing really well and doing things, you know, all well-rounded on all phases of the game. Then the Bills stepped it up in the second half, and they didn't look back. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you look at the defensive performance by multiple people. You look at, you know, Josh Allen kind of silencing critics to an extent, even, you know, with the injury to his left hand still stood tall and did his job. You know, now if it was his throwing hand, then it'd be a different story, more likely. But, you know, the fact that it's his non-throwing hand, I still expect to see him out there, but how much of an effect it will have on him, we'll see as the weeks go on.
Yeah, I agree with you. And yes, I 100% agree with you. I think I remember hearing that he did have his left hand dinged, but because of what you just said, I didn't pay attention. I was like, it's mid-September. If it's a ding, he'll still be out there. But yeah, and if it was like Thanksgiving and that same thing happened, I probably would look a little more toward, that might affect him and that might affect the team. But yes. Playmaker. He says, good morning, TFT brothers. Good morning to you, sir.
Playmaker.
Now, he believes that Cousins for the Falcons, he isn't fully healthy. In his opinion, he says the Falcons were either in the pistol or gun for most of the game. Well, yeah. And you might be right, sir. You might be right. But I know, healthy or not, though, you can't have a second half like that at any juncture the rest of the way because they're slated to actually win the NFC South. I don't see it. I'm sorry, I don't see it.
No, I don't see it either. Like looking at you got to establish a running game too. I mean, looking at how that went. I mean, Robinson, he carried the ball 18 times and had 68 yards. He did okay.
Yeah.
But you know, you're not going to be able to establish much more against that Steelers defense, and that's the. I don't know. I don't know if we can throw so much shade on the Falcons today as we need to really praise that Steelers defense because I think any of the other 31 teams in the NFL would have had a hard time playing the Steelers yesterday. Look at the amount of emotion they were coming out with. Also, the fact that you had the Steelers playing against Artie's old team. You know, Artie was going against his old team. And
motivation,
even though it wasn't like the offense balled out, the Steelers defense kept him upright.
Good point. Steelers, I think, defensively did play motivated. Strange, though, because Arthur Smith actually is an offensive mind, even though he was the head coach of the Falcons. But, interesting. But, Cousins is healthy or not. But I do agree with you. I think it was the Steelers' defense more than the ineffectiveness of Cousins, or it led to his ineffectiveness, really. All right, in Chicago, the Bears. The offense went to lunch. No, they hibernated. but the Bears defense and special teams did not. The Titans were up 17-3, but the Bears put 17-0. But the Bears put forth 24 unanswered points, steamed all the way through, and steamrolled the Titans 24-17. Caleb Williams. Now, if he has a stat line like this, more than likely he would be receiving one of these. He'll probably be receiving many of these if he has the stat line I'm about to read off. 14-29, 93 yards. No touchdowns. 5 carries, 15 yards. No touchdowns. But the best thing about his stat, same thing as with Justin Fields. 0 turnovers. Darrell Taylor on the defensive end. He gave the Bears 2 sacks. Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson, interceptions apiece. But Tyreek Stevenson's is the more important one, because that was a 43-yard pick six off of a what in the heck were you thinking, Will Levis, shuffle pass when he was in the grasp. Oh, and they also blocked a punt for a touchdown as well. And speaking of Will Levis, he threw 19 of 32 for 127 yards, a touchdown, and the aforementioned 2 picks. And what sucks is they wasted a really good, I won't say great, but a really good performance from Tony Pollard in his Titans debut. 16 carries, 82 yards and a touchdown, along with 3 receptions for 12 yards. Your thoughts on the Bears going to 1-0 with a 24-17 victory over the Titans?
Well, when it comes to this team, they got bailed out, and that being the Bears, they got bailed out by their defense. Had it not been for them, the Titans would have had one ugly version of that button you clicked. Now, looking at this right here, 93 yards on the day. Justin Fields, I don't even recall him having that bad of a pass. He has got to be better. He vows in his post-game presser that he's going to get better. He vows to get better. Now, looking at that, Will Levis, this is your second year. Your second true year starting. It looks like they would have been better off with Malik Willis at the helm at quarterback, because 127 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. A lot of that goes to the defense of the Bears for doing what they did, because there were some parts of the game yesterday when watching it that Will Levis wasn't terrible. I could see where he's grown. But at the same time, you can see where this Bears defense has grown. Montez Sweat, another great addition by them last year when they traded for him coming over from the Commanders.
Huge
but
impact.
There is a lot of work that needs to be done with this offensive line. Still, there's some issues with that. You saw the pressure that Caleb Williams had. It's not as bad as over in Carolina, but it's still very, very bad. And, we were talking about this during the offseason. Regardless of who you have back there at quarterback, and this goes for any team, if you got turnstiles, as offensive linemen, which you call them human turnstiles, and that's the nickname that I'm definitely going to continue to call the Panthers after you say that. If you have issues with your blocking on your offensive line, doesn't matter who you have at quarterback back there, they're going to be under pressure. And somebody as young as Caleb Williams, or even before that with Justin Fields, they're going to struggle. Just like Justin Fields is struggling a little bit when it comes to being in Pittsburgh. But we saw a huge difference in that yesterday in his game, because it's not as bad as what he experienced in Chicago. And from what we're seeing, besides Caleb Williams, besides Rome Odunze, what they made in those big first 2 picks in the draft, they didn't address enough when it comes to the offensive line, and they're going to struggle at times this year because of that. The only way they're going to get significant wins like they did yesterday is their defense bails them out.
And I think that's pretty much the takeaway for me. If the Bears are going to go anywhere this year, that defense is going to have to actually do things similar to like what the 2000 Ravens defense did for them, where they would actually forget just trying to stop offenses from scoring. They're going to have to probably manufacture points themselves just so they can stay afloat. Because yes, this Bears offense is still a work, and this is all in caps, work in progress. And yeah, Caleb Williams, He's fortunate that with the stat line he had, that they came out with a W. He shouldn't expect that too many times, though, if he throws 14 to 29, because, teams are going to be feasting on him, especially with that line that still needs a lot of work. Down in Indy, pretty good game, actually. The Colts, they hosted the Texans, divisional matchup. Of course, these two teams ended last year playing each other. The same result happened from week 18 of last year and week 1 of this year, as the Texans beat the Colts for the third consecutive time in Lucas Oil, 29-27. CJ Stroud went 24 of 32, 234 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Ran it 4 times for 13 yards. Came close to converting on the 4th down, but couldn't. Joe Mixon, in fact, I'll go back to him. The Texans offense, 213 rushing yards. And this is more than my team. I'm smiling because I love seeing a stat line like that. I don't care who it is. Nico Collins, six receptions, 117 yards in the air. Stephon Diggs, 6 receptions, 33 yards. Yes, I know that's paltry, but he did end up having 2 of those 6 receptions go for touchdowns. Oh, and Kalen Bullock, an INT for the Texans. Joe Mixon, I mentioned. His debut as a Texan coming from the Bengals. 30 carries, 159 yards and a touchdown. Oh, he added 19 yards on 3 receptions as well. And, not to be outdone, Kaimi Fairbairn gave the Texans 3 field goals. On the other side of the ledger, Anthony Richardson, 9 of 19, not all that great. 212 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. 6 receptions, 56 yards, and another touchdown. Alec Pierce, he was one of those receivers who benefited from a long pass from him. 3 receptions, 125 yards and a touchdown. And a DeForest Buckner sighting. He gave you a sack and a half. Your thoughts on this rather interesting game between the Colts and Texans?
So when it comes to this Colts team, they definitely made some improvements during this offseason. You can definitely tell that.
Mm-hmm.
And your Texans offensive line,
man,
I'm trying to think of the nicest way to put this. They grew up. Okay, that's probably the nicest way I could say it.
Yes.
They grew up because you could see the growth within your people of your offensive line because they were doing their job yesterday.
Yes.
And this game was it was a really good game. It had not been for that turnover, that interception by Anthony Richardson, though.
Mm-hmm.
It could possibly have gone the other way. Because look at how much the Texans won by only, having that one true turnover that they got with that interception, because everything else was pretty even and spot on. Stephon Diggs, brought in a couple touchdowns, but 33 yards, for him and what you gave up for him. I mean, you didn't really give up a whole lot, but at the same time, for the hype of Stephon Diggs, I was expecting at least 70, 75 yards out of him if you're going to have 2 touchdowns on the day. But another big thing that I raised an eyebrow at is the fact that the Colts need to get back to establishing the run, because their offensive line wasn't doing so well against that defensive front of the Houston Texans. Now, of course, you got to look at what the Houston Texans have over there on their side for that. So I can't really say so much. But what I will say is this. We talked about it several times before, and I'll say it again. When your quarterback has more rushing yards than your running back, that's a red flag right there, especially when you got somebody who's been with you for several years now, and Jonathan Taylor, who comes around and carries the ball for 16 times?
16 times, 48
yards. Yeah. I mean, looking at that, congratulations, you had a touchdown.
Yeah.
But it's not establishing enough of a run to get this game going for you. So they're lucky they got the production out of Anthony Richardson they did with those light of numbers, but at the same time, he helped his cause out with him running the ball for 6 times for 56 yards. But I could definitely see where he stepped it up. Another thing, too, that kind of concerns me a little bit is he only really completed half of his passes. So hopefully, he'll continue to grow over time. But I think that a lot of this had an effect of who he was actually playing, the defensive front that he was going against.
Good point. Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, to me, that was the question I had when I watched back the highlights of that game. I was like, So normally the Colts would want to establish the run, especially against the Texans. I'm like, why didn't they? Yes, I know they got over 100 yards rushing in total, but Jonathan Taylor is the reason why the Colts are supposed to go as far as they go. And I agree with you. 48 yards on 16 carries, that's not good enough. And he's willing to actually carry the ball 20, 25, 30 times in the game. But so be it. But yes, Anthony Richardson, this is his first game back since he got injured, actually against the Texans, but they were playing in Houston. So first time he's been on the field in almost a year. I mean, he looked good healthy-wise, but in terms of the skill of quarterback position, I agree with you. He has to tighten up his accuracy a lot. If the team's going to go somewhere, that's exactly what they have to do. Playmaker says, oh, Lord, not that FCS school in Carolina. Credit to the Bears defense and special teams, but Will Levis can't make that mistake. Why are you shuffling passing and you were on your way to the ground? You might as well just take the sack then. I mean, he was literally 45 degrees at a 45-degree angle from the ground. He might as well just say, okay, screw it. It's a sack. He shovel passes it, and that was the game. Goodness gracious. Oh, and Playmaker says, congratulations to Colts, Texas on the win. But that AR bomb, oh, man, that was pretty. That was a pretty pass he threw. No question about that. Oh, and look, this is on behalf of course, both Drew and me. Subscribe now and never miss out on new content because it comes any way you like it from Sir Tobin Media and from Comey Media Incorporated. As you can see, we're still tweaking things. Steak Dicky, all of it from Norway. Good afternoon to you, sir. He says, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. I hope everything's good with you, sir.
Sick.
Everything's good with us as we roll on. Let's go to South Beach, where someone decided to get arrested. Oh, no, we're not talking about that. This isn't Gridiron Scoop. This is Opening Drive. The Dolphins, they hosted the Jaguars at South Beach. The Jaguars had a 17-3 lead, and they were about to go in for more, and then turned it all around for the Dolphins. They win it 20-17 on a last-second field goal. Tua Tagovailoa, 23-37, 338 yards and a touchdown. Gave you a carry for 11 yards on the ground. Devon Achane, I don't know if he thought he was a receiver or not. He only got 10 carries for 24 yards, but he did get 7 receptions, 76 through the air. Of course, Tyreek Hill, 7 receptions, 30 yards and a touchdown. 80 of those off of a bomb from Tua Tagovailoa, and then he acted as though he was a criminal, getting handcuffed in the end zone. I'm sorry. Jalen Waller, he chipped in for 109 yards on 5 receptions. On the other side of the ledger, Trevor Lawrence, 12-21, 162 yards on the touchdown, a carrying 8 yards on the ground. And defensively, Trayvon Walker, wasted performance, 2 sacks by the wonderful pass rusher that he is. Your thoughts on the Jaguars having a lead, having a double-digit lead, and then blowing it to the Dolphins?
Well, you know, maybe that officer that's now on leave for trying to detain Tyreek Hill before the game, maybe that gave a little spark to this Dolphins team, because look at what, you know, Tyreek Hill did in this game with 100+ receiving yards, and then he had that one bomb that he caught, and, you know, went for the touchdown, went to the house on. You know, looking at that right there, you got to say that besides Tyreek Hill and what he did right there, I think Tua primarily willed this team back into, you know, where they were actually in the game at the end, because for a good portion of the game, the Jags were up, and they were up, you know, it wasn't like they were winning by double digits, but they were up, you know, very, very decently. And if you go back and look on Sartoba's channel, the Duval Dive, you know, they had a reaction show to it last night, and they broke it down very, very well, talking about Bigsby on the ground and stuff like that had an effect for this Jags team that kept them in it. But that one blunder right there at the end definitely affected the way that this game went. So I think we got to give credit to Tua for willing this team back into it offensively, for one, but also got to give credit where it's due. That officer that tried to detain Tyreek Hill didn't work out. He's on leave, and the Dolphins get the dub.
Yeah, I guess it serves as proper motivation. There's a good point there. Yeah, and shout out to you, Mr. Nash, on the Duval dive. Yeah, I know they had to be disappointing having things go their way, and all of a sudden they just went kaput late. Playmaker says, why is it that either Etienne or T-Law that always cost the Jags the game? Hey, I don't know. Good question.
Oh, like he smells ETN.
Yeah. Speaking of ETN, where was he in this game? I'm like, very little on the present side. I mean, the Dolphins defense held him in check. Yeah, But I know that Playmaker stays out in Duval County. Yeah, I know that you all are probably belly aching. Well, he isn't. Well, yeah, he is, but for a different reason. But I know you're hearing many Jags fans belly aching about how things went down in South Beach. But yeah, that's a game the Jags should have had. There's just no question about that.
Yes, our first bowling shoe ugly game of the year.
Yeah. New. The Carolina Panthers travel to New Orleans. Let me try to get through this. The Carolina Panthers, they traveled to the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans to play their arch rival, New Orleans Saints. Bryce. I tried, but I just thought about that offensive line, and they're horrible. 47-10, and the game seriously was not even that close. Derek Carr probably had the best game he's had since he was a Raider, and I mean early as a Raider, probably his MVP season as a Raider. 19-23, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 carries for 13 yards. Alvin Kamara, talk about someone turning back the clock. 15 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. 5 receptions, 27 yards, and another touchdown through the air. Alontae Taylor on defense gave you 3 of the Saints' 4 sacks on the day. Not to be outdone, you had Will Harris give you a pick. You had Jordan Howden give you a pick. And Blake Grupe, he gave you 4 field goals, 4 of them things for the Saints. Then Bryce Young. $13 of 30, 161 yards, 2 interceptions. He did score a touchdown, though, but it was on the ground, 4 carries for 12 yards. If you can, please give a description as to what you thought about this Saints whooping and whitewashing of the Panthers.
This was an abysmal game to watch. This was, if you're a Carolina Panthers fan and you watch the game from start to finish without missing anything, you are truly dedicated, because this thing was absolutely tough to watch, Cole. I don't wish this on anybody. I would have much rather taken a metal spork, not a plastic one like you get at KFC, but a metal spork. Yes, they are a thing. Take that and stab myself in the eye with it. That's how bad I wanted to take myself out of my misery, okay? Because I was flipping between multiple games and then had like the red zone on one TV. Got a decent setup in the garage with like 3 TVs, and then if not, I'll have the iPad and the phone. So there's like 5 different options of like how to view this stuff. It was wild. But the one thing I could tell you, the one screen I did not pay attention to after a little bit of time into the game was this game right here, just because of how bad it absolutely was. Like you have said, You've said it several times on this show. You've said it several times in just regular text communication with me about the human turnstiles that the Panthers have for an offensive line.
Sad.
Constantly spinning and the rush going right past them.
Sad.
Young is not going to make it, not only on this team, but in this league, if he keeps it up, because the sheer beating that he's taking. We were talking last year about the beating that Sam Howell was taking for the Commanders.
Yeah, he took a beating.
He took a beating, but nothing is going to compare to that when it comes to Bryce Young. Like he's going to exceed that at this rate. You also had players on the Panthers getting marred by the injury bug as well, which is going to affect a team that was already bad to begin with. Things just went from bad to worse, and they're not going to improve before the end of this year. They're going to have the number 1 overall pick again.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to be married to that. And look, I could come with jokes if I wanted to. There isn't one that's coming, because all I'm seeing is an inept team that I think is being done a disservice by its executive branch up in the press box and up in the luxury boxes, because they are not doing anything to even field a competitive squad on the field. In fact, you all might need to have, you all may need to celebrate another, what was that, 9-7 victories that you had like last year when you played in the downpour against the Falcons. You might need another one of those to actually get W's. Otherwise, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Now, I'm a Saints fan simply because I was born in New Orleans, and I went to Saints games because, well, my step grandfather had those Saints, and he was a huge fan of the team. If I was really an ardent supporter of the Saints, I would turn away from this. Yes, I'd be happy that the Saints beat a team by 37 points, but it was just horrible. I mean, the Saints had their way every single way with the Panthers. And yeah, look, remember the David Tepper. Do something to protect Bryce Young, please. Serious. I'm not joking. Do something to protect this young man. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Wow. Oh, and this is for you, one Mr. Wazelefe. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the New York Giants of the Meadowlands. They went onto the field and they stunk it up. Now, it's not quite as bad as what the Panthers went through, but it was bad enough. 28-6, they took the L. Oh my gosh, I missed the opportunity. They took to the Minnesota Vikings. A Sam Darnold starting Minnesota Vikings, who, for the exception of an interception, actually played really well. 19-24, 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, the aforementioned pick. He carried the ball 3 times for 3 yards, but that's immaterial. The Vikings debut of Aaron Jones, really good. 14 carries, 94 yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 15 yards. More than likely, we will see that total sort of get in reverse. We'll probably see the yardage total go down a little bit on the run, and probably a little more in the air will go up. But I actually rather this more because I think it would suit the team better. But I know how Aaron Jones' skill set is. That's not indicative of what he normally does. On defense, Pat Jones, the second, he gave you 2 sacks, and he gave you 2 of the Vikings' 5. Oh, and you had also Andrew Van Ginkel give you a pick, and Harrison Smith also gave you a pick of Daniel Jones. 22 of 42, 186 yards, 2 interceptions, 6 carries, 15 yards, and probably a chorus of boos that are still ringing all throughout New York and New Jersey, northern New Jersey, to this moment. Your thoughts on the Vikings 28-6 thumping the Giants?
This defense of the Giants is absolutely terrible. It's. I was weighing it. I was like, what do they really need to address more? The defense or the quarterback? Now, we've been talking about for years that they really need to address this quarterback situation because Daniel Jones is not the guy. I mean, he definitely is not. When you look at the stats that he put up yesterday, he had 20 incompletions, threw 2 interceptions, couldn't even get the ball in the end zone, and couldn't even throw for 200 yards through playing all 4 quarters. Now, the defense was terrible in the fact that you made Sam Darnold look like a perennial All-Pro. Okay, the man for his first 12 passes didn't miss any. He was perfect on his first 12 passes. So that's one. You also look at the fact that he only threw for 208 yards and he had a pick, but he did throw for 2 touchdowns. He had more positive results from the Vikings, and that being coming from the helm of Sam Darnold, than you did from Daniel Jones. And their numbers, as far as passing yards goes, weren't much different. The biggest difference was the fact that Sam Darnold only had 5 incompletions in comparison to Daniel Jones's 20. Now, Aaron Jones also, stepped up, for the offensive, for the running game for the Vikings, which is something that we've needed to see for a while. He comes over from a rival and a place where he had been for so long over there in Green Bay, goes to the rival and puts up nearly 100 yards on the ground, gets over 100 all-purpose yards because he had 2 receptions for 15 yards as well. But the Vikings defense in the the other side from the Giants, they had 5 sacks on the day. They did their job. They held them to 6 points. Now, looking at this Giants team and the way they played for the past 3, 4, 5 years, let's say from 2018 on to now, where they've really been slumping. They've been slumping since their last Super Bowl, but they really fell off the cliff over the past half decade. So looking at that, it all stems from multiple things. They need to fix the quarterback position, and by fix, replace. They need to make some adjustments on that offensive line too, because they're another team that has issues with their offensive linemen. And 3, they need to fix the entire defense, because the entire defense just absolutely was terrible in this game. That's my biggest takeaways from this.
Man, so solid of analysis. I really have nothing to add. I I feel for Giants fan. Woo, man, that team is horrible. Oh my gosh! And Brian Daboll, I'm sure you're longing for days being the OC of the Buffalo Bills again, because Oh, 6 says, Steve Reich. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. He also says Tyreek Hill's new theme song should be "Bad Boys" by Inner Circle. Man, you would have thought. Playmaker says, yeah, Sam Darnold saw ghosts all right, because the Giants couldn't be seen like John Cena. All right, more Sunday games to come. The afternoon slate, we start with the Chargers. They are renting. I'm sorry, that's in poor taste. They were at home. Although they are renting. They are renting SoFi. They played the Raiders yesterday, and the Raiders got out to a decent start. Chargers got out to a slow one, but they grinded it out. 22-10 was the final score. The Chargers beat the Raiders. Justin Herbert, I might need to see more stat lines like this if other aspects go as planned. 17-26, 144 yards and a touchdown. Ease up on the carries, though. 13 carries for 33 yards on the ground. But I am liking the efficiency with the arm. J.K. Dobbins, another debut. He's debuting for the Chargers from the Ravens. 10 carries, only 10 carries, 135 yards and a touchdown. And hit 135 yards he garnered was part of the rushing attack that garnered the Chargers 176 on the ground. Khalil Mack, who he must actually froth at the mouth when he sees the Raiders. Another sack and a half against them with a fumble recovery to boot. Poona Ford, he gave you a pick. Cameron Dicker gave you 3 field goals. And the man that my brother calls Uncle Rico, Gardner Minshew, 22-33, 257 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and a lost fumble. Your thoughts, because my thought is uneven. Your thoughts on this game between the Raiders and the Chargers?
Well, I would say that your stat line for Justin Herbert, that one right there, that's I don't know where that stat came from, but he only had 4 carries for 6 yards on the day. He didn't have 13 or 33.
Sorry.
So where you were concerned about that, you can ease your concerns because he didn't carry that many times. Because when I saw that, I was like, no, I got to go double check this. I got to go Tony reality this. There's no way, because I watched that game and I was like, I don't recall him running that many times. So not trying to throw you under, but at the same time, I wanted to help you realize, like, no, he didn't run 3 times the amount that he did on there. So we're good. Now, when it comes to that, Justin Herbert, we need to see more production from him as far as 144 passing yards. They're lucky they got the win decisively that they did, over this Raiders team. And I think that speaks volumes about the Chargers defense that they've got, in the upgrades they made during the offseason with that, through the draft, free agency as well. And J.K. Dobbins coming over from the Ravens to the Chargers, running for 135 rushing yards in this game. He established the run very well, which is what helped open some things up for the offense for the Chargers. Now, when it comes to the Raiders, Uncle Rico threw for 250 plus, but he turned the ball over. That's not going to help you out your cause. And also the Raiders rushing. There's no rushing hardly ever from this Raiders team. If you don't establish the run, there's no way. There's absolutely no way, unless you got a Steelers defense on your roster. There's no way you're going to get the victory. So I would say big for the Chargers offense for establishing the run, but also getting great quality production out of their defense. But the Raiders, they regressed in this game. When you look at how they played last year against this Chargers team, granted, both teams didn't have a head coach, and Antonio Pierce was the interim. And you look at what happened with Staley. I mean, that's why I said you had no coach, okay? But because that routing that the Raiders gave them, that ultimately gave Staley the boot.
63-21.
Yes. That game right there. Whew. But two totally different teams faced off, even though there were similarities within the rosters that they had. Two totally different teams faced each other yesterday in comparison to that 40-point, overhaul, we'll say, because they had won by 40 points in that game last year. It wasn't like this yesterday, but what I can say is this. It's going to be a long season for the Raiders, so they can't get the ball going on the ground. If they cannot move it, and they cannot rush. We'll have to see how things go, but it's going to be a long year for them if they don't improve from this.
That is my main issue. The fact that they could not establish the run. I'm like, oh, yeah, I agree with you. It would be a long season if that's the case. Now, if Minshew has these stats and the running game is going, then I think that would be what Antonio Pierce would like. But knowing him, I know he's unhappy because things did not go as planned on both sides of the ball. I hope they can tighten things up. But hey, Jim Harbaugh, in your first NFL head coaching stint ever since you came from Michigan, and I hope the NFL sees you well again, like they did when you were the head coach of the 49ers up the road. But we shall see. Want to know? So far, so good. Up the coast. Let's go to the Pacific Northwest, shall we? The Seattle Seahawks, and I was completely wrong about this. They hosted the Denver Broncos, Actually, was a pretty decent game. Um, I mean, competitive, I should say. But the Seahawks, they wore their throwback jerseys and they threw out the Broncos 26-20. Geno Smith, decent, 18 to 25, 171 yards, a touchdown and a pick. 4 carries more on the ground for 30 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Of course, to the start of me, Kenneth Walker III, 20 carries, 103 yards, and a touchdown, along with 2 receptions for 6 yards. And then 103 yards, that was part of the 46 rushing yard attack from the Seahawks offense. Reek Woolen, he gave you a pick. Julian Love also gave you a pick. That's, if you count boys and girls, that's 2 picks that Bo Nix threw in his first NFL start. He went 26 to 42, 438 yards with the aforementioned 2 picks. He did carry the ball 5 times for 35 yards, and he garnered a touchdown on the ground. Wasted the effort from Jonathan Cooper, who gave you 2 sacks. Alex Singleton, they gave you an interception. And Will Lutz, who gave you 3 field goals. Your thoughts on the Seahawks 26-20 victory over the Broncos?
You know, if it wasn't for Bo Nix being his first game, being a rookie, you know, having the nerves, throwing those 2 picks, they would have won this game. They definitely would have won this game, in my opinion, because those 2 interceptions that he threw set the Steelers up the Seahawks up for additional points that they wouldn't have, you know, garnered any other way. You know, the fact that you also had Will Lutz, you know, kicking 3 of 3 on field goals for the day. I know the Saints are missing that because he was good for the Saints back in the day when he was doing that. But overall, I gotta say, you know, Geno Smith did pretty well. I mean, he did have 1 interception, threw for 171 yards overall, had better production than Bo Nix. But between Bo Nix throwing those 2 interceptions and Kenneth Walker III establishing the run for the Seahawks to when they did go to those 2 turnovers and some with other drives, the Kenneth Walker, you know, as well as Tyler Lockett helped get this team moving the chains consistently to where if it wasn't for, you know, that, the Seahawks would not have won this game. And Will Lutz kept the Broncos in this game based on, you know, that he had 2 turnovers from that being Bo Nix at quarterback. And, you know, you were still able to muster up 9 points on special teams. Had you not done that, you'd only would have put up like 11 points on the day. And it was just terrible, you know, to see, you know, certain things fall to the wayside. But at the same time, we can't have such high expectations on this Broncos team. Look at where they were a year ago, which was better than what they were the year before that. You know, Sean Payton's definitely made some improvements, and the fact that they only lost by 6 points in this game speaks volumes.
Yeah, and I think the energy of the Broncos is a little bit different this year than last, because when they got off to that horrible start, even in game 1, and it was only by 1 point they lost by, if I'm not mistaken, we all thought, oh, the sky is falling. And that was the feeling that I received from Mile High. I'm not really feeling that energy here. I'm feeling optimism, although missed opportunities that definitely showed itself. But yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity, but optimism. And I think what Sean is going to probably hammer into Bo's head is that, look, this game would have been ours if you take care of the ball. That's the thing that you have to concern yourself with. You take care of the ball, we'll win. You don't have to wow us with what you got. Just make sure that you have the offense on time, and we'll win. So I know this week that is what Bo Nix is going to be working on. Not being able to make that mistake that will cost his team a W, because, for all intents and purposes, did. But that's what happens when you're a rookie. You make those mistakes. Well, 0-1 they are. The Seahawks 1-0. We see what they will do each of those teams next week. Oh, boy. Goodness gracious. The following is brought to you Good Lord, this is so painful. It's like I'm having a doggone toothache. Good Lord. The following is brought to you by the annoyance that is Cowboys Fan. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. Speaking of scores that wasn't even indicative of the closest of the game, the Cowboys romped the Browns 33-17. The game wasn't even that close. Dak Prescott, who now is the richest man in NFL history as of this moment, signing a contract right before he took the field. 19-32, 179 yards and a touchdown. He gave you another carry for 3 yards. Eric Hendricks, on the other side of the ball, he gave you a couple of sacks and a pick. DeMarcus Lawrence, he also gave you 2 sacks. That Zimmer-led defense, he put Mr. Watson to the ground 6 times. Oh, and Trayvon Diggs coming back. Welcome back, sir, from injury. He also got a pick. And then you had Kevontae Turpin. He gave you a 60-yard punt return for a touchdown. And Brandon Aubrey, not to be outdone, he chipped in with 4 field goals. But the stat line of the game, Deshaun Watson. Oh, boy. Yeah. He went 24 45 for 169 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He also ran the ball 5 times for 39 yards. And I did mention he got put to the turf 6 times by the Cowboys defense. Like, this is how he was after the game. Oh, girl, I called you here because I need that massage. But first, the towel. Give me the towel. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, just sit back and relax because I'm about to massage myself. You about to witness it. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to think about these doggone linemen and these outside linebackers putting me to the turf. Bump that. I'm going to be on cloud. Woosah. Your thoughts on the 33-17 butt whooping that the Cowboys gave the Browns?
So the Cowboys lost money because they gave it to 2 players, right?
Yes.
And they, in this case, in a lot of historical examples, we'll see when you pay multiple players, or you pay a player a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Usually the first game, they take a step back. Right. It didn't happen in this one.
No, not this time.
Now, I say that because Deshaun Watson gave the Browns money. Okay? He gave them money. He restructured his contract where he had more money to work with for this season. And they went backwards. You would have thought that a good gesture and faith would have resulted in a dub. However, when you do what you do, and the way that Cole described it, and you're taking a snooze fest out there because of what you did, sometimes, and just sometimes, I can only think about that, and I can only think about that in the way that things have changed a lot around on here. Here it is. That's why.
Not the Dustin Pelican and the L.
Yeah, you got the double down L. Okay, that's the best way I could put it. But no, usually it works in the favor of you give money back, you get rewarded. No, they got straight mollywopped in this game. They are still missing Nick Chubb. Jerome Ford is not going to be the
No.
one that can take things over for this team and
Yeah.
carry this running back core on his back. Because even though collectively they still ran for almost 100 yards as a team, the 2 interceptions by Deshaun Watson was terrible. The fact that he only threw for 169 yards is terrible. I think today the Browns are happier that he gave them money back because they don't feel quite as bad for suffering that loss yesterday than they would have had he not given the ball back. Jerry Jeudy got a touchdown. Congratulations. That's the most production you have put up in your entire NFL career, it feels like. Because you had 3 receptions for 25 yards, yet a running back had 3 more receptions than you. So there's a lot of different ways we can weigh out the pros and cons of this game. But overall, I think it's going to result in too many Tyrone Alizé McDummies getting way too excited way too soon. Because look at the caliber of team which you played in the Browns yesterday. They definitely played like they have been going to the Super Bowl. And I mean the Super Bowl we used to joke about a lot.
Oh, Lord, he had to mention Tyrone Alizé McDummy.
Drew Willingham.
No. I would. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. Oh, my goodness. Why? Why'd you have to mention him? Oh, Lord. Lord. Dion.
Ain't nobody care. Who cares? Ain't nobody care.
Good job doing this in mid-September, but Cowboys fan, we need to see this in 4 months' time. If they do this same type of performance in January, then we will sit up and take notice. Until then, you can take your team and understand that in the regular season it's great, and in the postseason they are. End rant. Goodness. And now we are to your Washington Commanders. They went to Tampa. They played the Buccaneers. Unfortunately, they took it on the chin to the tune of 37-20. The Bucs beating the Commanders. Baker Mayfield, a really good performance. 24 of 30, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I say that on the heels of the offense not really getting good run production, but he was solid in the air. Chris Godwin gave you 6 receptions, 83 yards and a touchdown. Mike Evans, 5 receptions with 61 yards, but he gave you 2 touchdowns. Chase McLaughlin with his foot gave you 3 field goals for the Bucs. And then you have Jaden Daniels, 17-24, 184 yards in the air. This is why someone went 16 carries, 88 yards, even though he gave you 2 touchdowns on the ground. 16 carries for your quarterback. Man, that's too many. Hopefully he does not get dinged up. Man, that's just too many carries. But this is why, as a cause of concern and alarm for me, Cade York, 0 of 2 field goals. He did score, but it was both extra points. Your thoughts on the Commanders' 37-20 loss in Tampa?
I'm going to try to be as light on this as possible because I still have to do a show tomorrow. But what I will say about this is, I could see when it comes to the Commanders, I could see the upgrades at certain positions. I can see where they still need to work with some things, and a lot of it has to do with this offensive lines. And the defense as well. Their secondary needs to be addressed in certain ways too, because the amount of points that they gave up, considering, look at the talent they're playing against. Some of these guys they're playing against on the Buccaneers are still from that Super Bowl team from 4 years ago. So, when you look at Mike Evans, when you look at, Chris Godwin, when you look at those players, they're still playing at a pretty high level at wide receiver for the Buccaneers, and they're going to be able to attack that secondary the way that they did. So I'm not, so much disappointed at that as I am with the offensive line, because there was hype around Nick Algoretti. And you and I were talking about this several months ago. I've even talked about it on CGR.
You were happy about it.
That I was happy about it, but I also did say that it's not going to be enough. They still need to make some. They still need to address a few more things within that offensive line. And I even was saying back then, it's going to take another couple of years before they are fully at the where they want to be.
Yeah.
With that being said, I do like the grit that I saw in Jaden Daniels. He still didn't turn the ball over. The one thing that concerns me, though, is the amount of times that he ran the ball.
Right.
Because that right there in itself, that stat line is 100% true. When you look at the fact that he carried the ball 16 times for 88 yards. Now, granted, he got the ball in the end zone twice. That's good.
Yeah.
But the fact that you had 16 carries and your next leading rusher was Brian Robinson with 12 carries, and he had 40 yards and a touchdown. And don't even get me started with Austin Eckler. Like, I could see why the Chargers did not want to bring him back. Like, peace. This is also another reason why the Commanders, formerly known as the REDSKINS, used to be famously known for bringing in players that are way past their prime. In Austin Eckler, this is the beginning of the end. Or wait, no, that was last year when he was still in LA. So, looking at this now to how things are going to go for the rest of the season, this team is definitely not making the playoffs, that being the Commanders. They are not making the playoffs. If they do, I'll be highly surprised. But they will have to find 2 or 3 other key additions off of the street for the O-line this year if they're going to make a run like that in the next 16 games, and I don't see it. I did see some flashes of what could be in the years to come, but this is a work in progress. It's gonna take some time, but for what we saw out of Jaden Daniels, given the circumstances and where that team is at, I'm very happy to see that it's just still going to take a good amount of time for them to get to where they want to be.
That was the note I was hoping you would catch when you saw this game, because that was the feeling I got when I predicted it. I was like, yeah, the Commanders are going to take an L, but I think this is going to have to be one of those moral victory type of things where you got to see if the development of Jaden Daniels is going the way it's supposed to go. And so far it is, because yes, part of why he has that many carries, and you know this, and you basically said it beautifully. Part of why he has that many carries is, well, that's his skill set, but part also is that ineffective offensive line still. And if they can tighten that up, yeah, I think you should be happy, because I think you'll have your first QB that can actually take you places since, dare say, Mark Brunell.
But yes, and also another factor in this too was, where in the expletive was Scary Terry at? Okay, I said what I said about Austin Eckler when it came to the ground, but the fact that Austin Eckler had 2 carries for 10 mother-fathering yards, and he was the leading receiver at 4 receptions for 52 yards, and your next leading one was another running back who had 3 receptions for 49 yards, meaning all they really had, exactly, you beat me to it, was checkdowns. And Zach Ertz was the 3rd leading one as well, so another checkdown receiver being the tight end. So when you look at Terry McLaurin's 2 receptions for 17 yards, that right there speaks volumes in itself, because Jaden Daniels didn't have enough time when it came to his blocking around him to process what was going on. So he was getting the ball out to the first available read that looked like it could go for something, and that's what we saw in this game.
Great analysis as always. And yeah, if you want to check out my man break down even further the Commanders, tune into the Commanders Grad Report. New time tomorrow, 1:05 Eastern. That's PM. 12:05 p.m. Central on Soto Media YouTube channel. You can hear all of his thoughts and then some about the Washington Commanders.
Thanks for letting me sleep.
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. Playmaker says, look, This is not the time to use Deion Sanders talking. Just saying. Lord have mercy. I know. Look good, feel good, play good. Sorry. My bad. Scary Terry, playmaker, said was non-existent. Yeah, unfortunately, you were correct, and so is Drew. Yes, he was non-existent.
You're with me there on that, playmaker.
Mm-hmm. No question. No question. All right, to the Sunday night game. And yes, this came close to being the game of the week, but I decided no. But it was still a good game all the same. The only overtime game, if I'm not mistaken, that happened in NFL. The Lions hosted the Rams. It was a repeat of their playoff affair 8 months prior, and same result. The Lions beat the Rams 26-20 in overtime. My apologies to you, playmaker, who's a Rams fan. That was a hard L to take. Jared Goff, uneven performance. I think that's the best way I could describe it. 18-28, 217 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He gave you a carry for 7 yards, and that was a big carry because it gave him first down. Unfortunately, that also led to the pick that he threw on the same drive. David Montgomery, 17 carries, 91 yards, the game-winning touchdown, along with a reception for 2 yards. The Lions offense, I'm loving this, though, 163 yards on the ground. So that's a positive. Another positive. Jameson Williams, it looks like he is coming into his own. 5 receptions, 121 yards and a touchdown. Looked really good in that game. Looked really good in the game last night. Kirby Joseph on the other side for the Lions, he got you a pick. And on the other side of the coin, Matthew Stafford, the former Lion, now current Ram, again, uneven performance. 34-49, 317 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Cooper Kupp gave you 14 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown. Puka Nacua had to be carted off in the second quarter. That might hurt things for the Rams. On the defensive end, John Johnson III, he gave you a pick. Cameron Dicker, he gave you 3 field goals for the Rams. Really good game all around. But as I said, uneven performances, at least from what I could gather. Your thoughts on the Rams and Lions?
Well, I agree with Playmaker when he says that they got bullied in OT.
Oh, yeah, they did.
But at the same time, they not only lost Puka Nacua, but the Rams lost multiple offensive linemen as well in that overtime loss to the Lions. When you're losing, somebody like a wide receiver, and then you have multiple impacts to your offensive line, which they're the ones that give you the time to process what's going on, on the defense, to where you can make the right reads and make the right throw to whoever is open, or, pitch or whatever you're doing in your play, or run if you decide to run it or whatnot. But speaking of run, even though he ran the ball 18 times, Kieran Williams 50 yards, that production, it's not going to help, you be able to open things up, because there were certain points in this game with the Rams. I thought we're going to run away with this for a little bit, because they were leading for a good portion, even though it was back and forth there in the second half. They were doing pretty good with how they were leading in this game. I liked what I was seeing out the Rams overall, because you look at Matthew Stafford, it looked like he turned the clock back a little bit. 317 passing yards on the day. He threw the ball nearly 50 times. 50 times through 49 passes in this game. The running backs, though, with the amount of production that you got out of your running backs, that concerns me. The fact that you had to go to Cooper Kupp 14 times for 110 yards speaks volumes. Yes, that concerns me too, because even though you spread the ball out, because you got Tyler Johnson, Colby Parkinson, Demarcus Robinson, even Puka before he went out, all involved, and Kieran Williams had 3 receptions for 4 yards. Like, you spread the ball out. It's not on the quarterback. It wasn't like he was just looking at Cooper Kupp the whole time.
Right.
But he was the most reliable option, and he's the oldest option that you have out there, a wide receiver. So Just like your quarterback isn't going to be there for much longer because of his age. Cooper Kupp's in the same category, maybe a little bit more time than Matthew Stafford, but you can't be running the wheels off of him already because, it's not like you have Austin Eckler there to back you up. No, I'm just kidding. But when it comes to this team, there were a lot of points throughout this, before we got towards the fourth quarter where I felt like this Rams team deserved to win this game because it could have been one of the last games that we see Matthew Stafford go against the Lions because we've been talking about it for multiple years. It's time for him to hang it up. It's time for him to hang it up. It's time for him to retire, and you look at the production that they got out of him yesterday. Overall, I mean, I think Matthew Stafford could play a good amount of time, but at the same time, this is the first game of the season. Right. We'll see once we get towards halfway through or with only a quarter of the season left, and we'll see the production that we're getting out of him then, especially when the cold weather starts making an effect on these games. We'll see how things go then, but you look at the other side for the Lions. Jamison Williams definitely stepped up in this game because Amon-Ra St. Brown sure as expletive didn't. When you look at the fact that he had 3 receptions for 13 yards in this game, and he's supposed to be their number one. He's supposed to be the modern-day Megatron for this team. That's the hype that he was getting during the offseason, and he definitely didn't step it up at all in this game. So where the Lions got lucky because they had somebody, Jamison Williams, who does have hype on him, but not like Amon-Ra St. Brown. They got the production out of him that they needed. Also, David Montgomery came out of nowhere with the type of production that we were getting from him on the screen last night, when the fact that he ran for 17 times for 91 yards and a touchdown. And Jahmyr Gibbs kind of regressed a little bit when you look at the fact that he carried 11 times for 40 yards. But even there at the end, like at the end of the game, you start to see the true grit from these players. And you saw David Montgomery was running hard. There was 3 separate plays where I remember David Montgomery was running so hard that he should have been, tackled 5 yards sooner than he should have been. 5 yards sooner than he was, but he was driving his legs through those Rams defenders and carrying another 3 to 5 yards to get the first down and to move those chains to where they could score. So where Playmaker says that they got bullied, they straight up got bullied by David Montgomery, who came out there like he wanted to rip people's heads off, because you look at where he came from before and the team that he came from before he came to the Lions. I think he's playing with something to prove this year, because a lot of people like myself, when it came to playing fantasy football before, didn't want to take David Montgomery because he was absolutely terrible. Now, looking at it, those who have David Montgomery are probably excited after week 1, but will it remain consistent? That's the big question from now until the end of this season.
Yeah, and will Jahmyr Gibbs actually take some of those touches away from him? Yeah, I think this probably might be. I don't know if this year will be the swan song for Matthew Stafford, but yeah, I agree. I think this will probably one of the last times you will see him go up against the Lions. Probably one of the last times he probably will go up against them in Detroit for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was actually it was a well played game, but like I said, I just think that the 2 quarterbacks played uneven. They had the moments where they did great, and then they had the moments where they were like, for example, the Rams were driving. They were within, I think, the Lions 10, and then Stafford inexplicably underthrew his receiver in the end zone, and that led to the interception that we're talking about. And it just and if he just arched it over, or if he were to be patient and see if his receiver could have uncovered, he probably would have had a touchdown. But that's the uneven performances that I was seeing. And of course, I mentioned Goff's interception, same thing. The Rams seem to have been gassed. I mean, they got up 20-17, and for some reason, late in the fourth quarter, it just seemed as if it was just deflating for them to see the Lions drive down and get the game-time field goal, and then they had nothing in overtime. At least the defense didn't. And Playmaker says, yeah, I'm on Ross St. Brown, the Lion Saver. Say the game clinching INT. Yeah. And he says, oh, yeah.
The only thing he did.
Yeah. He says, oh,
I mean,
yes.
I said what I said because you look at the hype that this guy has had, for multiple years now. And he's saved an interception. Like, I'm happy, like, at the same time that he got to do something in the game. But it didn't help you out, though.
No, didn't help him out. No,
him being part of the Ramley. No.
Helped the team out, but yes, didn't help him out. Playmaker said, yeah, Stafford threw almost 50 times. Q, Cole Johnson, and Sean McVay. Look, I don't know if I can really go in that hard on the Wunderkind, but I will say this: he tried to run. Unfortunately, Kyron Williams just wasn't up to snuff yesterday. For whatever reason, he just couldn't gain those yards. And for whatever reason, he seems to have issue running against the Lions. I don't know why, but he just seems to have a big time issue running against them. Not to say the Lions are horrible against the run, but they're not the Steelers against the run. So, yeah. He just has issue. In the playoffs, are the same thing. He just has issue running against the Lions. I don't know why.
And when it comes to your issue,
stop it. Get some help.
Well, that's what Williams needs to have. Could not agree with you more, sir. Nice timing. And now it's time for
the game upset of the week.
What in the world were the Beagles thinking? They let the Patriots go into, I forget what they call it now, but it used to be called Paul Brown Stadium. I think it's Center Point or something of that nature. Field, and they just or Paycor Field, and they just simply had their way with the Bengals. The final score was 16-10, and the Bengals were lucky to have the 10. Jacoby Brissett, 15-24, 121 yards. Did not wow you, but he didn't have to wow you. 7 carries on the ground, 32 yards more. But again, the biggest stat for him, 0 turnovers. The Patriots offense, 170 yards on the ground. Keon White, he gave you, for the Patriots, 2.5 sacks on D. Joey Sly, he gave you 3 field goals on the day. But Ramondre Stevenson was the man in the game. 22 carries, 120 yards on a touchdown. He also gave you 3 receptions for 6 yards. He was basically the man on the Patriots, and he was the man in the game because Joe Burrow certainly was not. 21-29, 164 yards, and it looks like the bleach job on his head has affected his brain. Your thoughts on the Patriots 16-10, well, actually, physical decimation of the Bengals?
Guess who's back? Back again. That's what I think of when I see him.
Yeah, the training camp, he did look like Slim Shady's version of Eminem, yes.
Between that and, they reverted back to, I am Cornholio, I need some TP for my Cincinnati bunghole. Like, that's how it was.
Good callback.
So going back in the past twice there in 1 minute, that's basically what we got. Now, looking at this game overall, it was tough to watch in certain elements. Ramondre Stevenson was the star of the game. With him doing what he did on the ground, he definitely they controlled the clock. The Patriots did with that.
Yep.
Their defense played really, really well. You could definitely see Gerard Mayo's influence on that as a former player on the defensive side, as a former defensive coordinator. Coming over from he's been part of this team for a while, but now he gets to run it in his way, and you can see where there's still elements to what he's learned from the hoodie. But I even told you this yesterday. I said he showed more emotion in that game from start to finish, and even when they won, than we got from the hoodie in 20 plus years. And he won 6 championships in that time.
Yep.
So, excuse me. Now, thinking about that, I'm happy for Gerard Mayo. Happy that he got the victory, in his first ever game coaching in the NFL. He gets a victory. There's still some things that you got to be concerned about overall. You can't have Jacoby Brissett throwing like he did in this game.
No.
And being as inconsistent as he was. At the same time, you look at the fact that you brought Antonio Gibson over from the Commanders, and he had 7 carries for 18 yards in this game. Now, I know he's a backup piece to Ramondre Stevenson.
Right.
The fact that you're backup quarterback, and I look at it as backup because, Drake May is the future.
No question.
This is just, getting him ready for that right now.
Yeah.
Right. But you got your backup quarterback in there, Jacoby Brissett, and he's running for more positive production than Antonio Gibson is. So that's something that concerned the blank out of me. That's something that's not going to hold up. And, I think that this was the tale of 2 defenses in this game. The Bengals and the Patriots. The one thing that the Bengals do not have is they do not have a run defense.
That's correct.
Pass defense, I'll give them that. They did pretty good with their coverage, cover 2s, cover 3s. Their secondary looked pretty good. I give the Bengals that, and if they knock the rust off in certain ways, they can probably recapture what they've had over the past few years since Joe Burrow came into the league. So I'm not going to throw them completely under the bus. It's the first game of the year. But that run defense has got to make some huge adjustments because you let Ramondre Stevenson look like Adrian Peterson in this game, with the amount of production that he was getting on the ground. Joe Burrow as well, even though you only had 8 incompletions on the day, he still only threw for 164 yards. I think part of this has to deal with the fact of the type of defense that the Patriots have. And the Patriots defense is going to be what carries them into a positive record this year if they do have that. Even more so than what the Steelers are going to have, because I think the Steelers will eventually at some point with Najee Harris, and then you got George Pickens over there, that offense is going to start clicking at some point. It's just a matter of who's going to be the full-time starter. It's for quarterback with the Steelers. And until they address some of the issues on the offensive line there, just like in this case for this team, the Patriots are going to be very similar to the Steelers when it comes to their offensive production. It's going to be very inconsistent at times, and that's what we saw in this game yesterday. I'm looking forward to seeing what this team can evolve into, but just like other teams we've talked about earlier in the show, like the Commanders that need to put some more work into their offensive line, the Steelers, it's going to take a couple more years for us to see what this team can truly do until they make those upgrades.
Yeah. Great points. And I think what I'm enjoying from that win for the Patriots is, like you said, this isn't fully a hoodie type of team. It's not like it's someone that just got the job and it's like, well, we'll run what we've been running before and that'll work. No, you actually saw a little bit of Gerard Mayo in the player. So yes, congratulations. First ever head coaching game he's had, and it ended up being a W. And that defense came to play. And if that's how they're going to play for the rest of the year, and if I'm Drake May, I am smiling from the sideline because, man, if he gets a defense like that and they build properly around him on offense, we may have to deal with some Patriot fans saying Super Bowl again, just like the Cowboys. Boy, it would suck. Just that part would.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. And now we get to the game of the week, which was the game that started the 2024 regular season in earnest. The back-to-back defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs, they hosted the Baltimore Ravens in an AFC championship matchup from 7.5 months ago. Same two teams, same margin of victory. The Chiefs beat the Ravens 27-20 on the strength of Patrick Mahomes. Somewhat uneven performance with him. 20 of 28, 291 yards. He threw a touchdown. He did throw a pick. The the Rashee Rice experiment, which it looks good now, but it's going to look horrible when he has to disappear, when the NFL decides to suspend him. He had a really good game. 7 receptions, 103 yards. On the other side, Lamar Jackson, 26 of 31, 273 yards and a touchdown, 16 carries, 122 yards. Too many carries. And we're going to talk about something else about that too many carries line. Isaiah Likely, 9 receptions, 111 yards and a touchdown. And Roquan Smith on the defensive end for the Ravens, he got you that pick. Your thoughts on a game that literally came down to a toe from possibly a two-point conversion, possibly winning the game for the Ravens?
Wouldn't have even been necessary had Lamar Jackson connected with Zay Flowers on the play prior to that, because he was open.
Wide open.
You, me, anybody we know that has any type of athletic talents, even if they were 30 years ago, can still make that catch. Okay. I wouldn't say the pass, but the catch, because, when it comes to being pressure, to having pressure on you, it's a lot for us to say that we can, make the throw, but a catch when it's like, but at the same time, is that for Flowers, that ball was not placed right there in his hands. It was behind him. So, there was nothing he could do, in my opinion, to get that catch. Lamar Jackson, that's all on him when it comes to that. Likely, when it came to that play where, he was out by a toe, great effort by him to do what he did. And I don't think he's getting enough credit when it comes to that. In college, that would have been a touchdown.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Because had he just left the one toe up and had the other one in, that would have been a touchdown. Now, if it would have been the way that it was, though, at the same time, I think it still would have been out of bounds because you still had a toe out of bounds. But had he left that one toe up that was out of bounds, would have been a touchdown. With all that being said, there's some red flags that I see in this game that you and I talked about last year, multiple occasions about this team. And as a matter of fact, last year, Cole, you and I were talking about it as early as episode 2. That being the fact that Lamar Jackson is your leading rusher for the team.
Again,
16 carries for 122 yards. Looks great on paper, but not if you're doing it several times in a year. Yeah, you got 2 MVPs. Congratulations. But you also made a move for someone who's been the perennial all-pro running back for the Titans for several years. You bring him in. He runs 13 times, but he only puts up 46 yards. Okay, and congratulations. He got a touchdown. But you need to have multiple options back there to help balance that out, because your next leading rusher on top of that, your third one, was a wide receiver, being Zay Flowers, who had 2 carries for 14 yards on the day. And Justice Hill, don't even get me started. It looked like Glenn Allen Hill from the 90s playing for the Cleveland Indians and the White Sox and putting on a football uniform and just running it one time for 3 yards and says, "My name's Glenn Allen Hill. I'm going to go sit on the bench now." That's what it looked like when I saw Justice Hill running that one time. Okay? Now, people probably don't even know who that is. Look up Glenn Allen Hill on Google. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, now back to football. Look at what J.K. Dobbins did.
Yeah.
With his new team.
Yeah.
If only the Ravens would have had him, you could see, where he was kind of under the thumb of Lamar Jackson, because I still said this to you during the offseason while we were gearing up for this. Lamar Jackson constantly wants to run the ball. It's like that gets him off. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can see where J.K. Dobbins is thriving with the Chargers because he doesn't have a quarterback that consistently wants to run the ball. He actually has the creative freedom in his job as a running back
Mm-hmm.
to do what he does. Then that opens up things for the actual quarterback to do his actual job. This whole hybrid position, even Michael Vick to an extent, you didn't see him running 16 times in a game. You know, you saw him still putting up numbers, but he was doing that in half the amount of carries. So when I get it. When we saw Vic in the 2000s and Lamar Jackson growing up as a kid, then you wanted to be able to do those things and be like Vic and be like Mike. Well, you don't need to run the ball 16 times to do that.
No.
You need to share the wealth with your running back, but at the same time, based on the production of Henry in probably half of those carries early on in the first half, he probably wasn't really comfortable with what he was getting out of him. But at the same time, if you fed him more, if you let him be the one who had 16, 17, 18 carries in the game, you might have saw some different results out of Derrick Henry. Would it have been the same amount of rushing yards as Lamar Jackson? Probably not.
Probably not.
But you wouldn't be exposing yourself to potentially having a hit like Jordan Love took or like Josh Allen took.
Josh Allen took too.
Which luckily, was on his non-throwing hand.
Mm-hmm.
But the more times that you run the ball, the more likely something like that's going to happen. And I don't like the chances for the Ravens with 16 games left in the season if they're starting the first one out with having your quarterback run 16 times for 122 yards.
Here's something that would probably make you say, huh? The first possession, Derrick Henry got the rock 5 times. So you do the math. The rest of the game, he only received the rock 8 more times. Now, make that make sense to me. If
it doesn't.
Yeah. If everybody, including Lamar Jackson, understands, okay, so the bread on the running game is buttered with Derrick Henry, and we established that the very first possession, and it ended up in a touchdown, I may add. Why go away from that? That is the issue that I have when I talk to people about, well, Lamar Jackson's great. Look, he has 2 MVPs. And I mean, he runs for 1,000 yards a season, and it's nothing to him.
It's adorable.
I'm like, okay, fine. How many Super Bowl trips has it garnered him? 0. I mean, it barely has garnered him victories in the playoffs. I mean, we have what now? 2 that we can count. So, no, you need him to be upright. You need him to understand that his greatest skill is to stay in the pocket. And if he can stay in the pocket, then that running ability that he has, that becomes even more dangerous. I don't know, like Steve Young. And I keep saying that. I'm like, he needs to study Steve Young tapes, where it's like this guy, he ran for his life early in his professional career. Then he got under Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren, and he got taught the finer points of being a QB. And they said, that running ability you have, it'll be even greater and more dangerous weapon, because you'll be able to dissect defenses from the pocket. And then when things break down and you've gone through your progressions of the first, the second, third, and the fourth read all covered, you can take forward down the field. And guess what? You will have less wear and tear on you. You'll take on less hits, and the run that you'll have would be even more effective. But it's sexy and exciting to be a dual threat quarterback. But the other side of that ledger, you're seeing a guy who has the dual threat, but it's exactly what I'm talking about. And how many rings he has? 3. The last 2 have been in the last 2 calendar years. So I must not be. I guess Drew and I doesn't know what we're talking about. But yeah, exciting game. these two teams, when they lock up, it's always very close, very contentious. But the Ravens, as good as they are, and they're really good, they still are a little bit behind the Chiefs. But you don't have that far to go. The problem, though, is you're stuck in neutral when it comes to the Chiefs. And that's not what you're supposed to be. Well, at least you still have the AFC North to win. You have that still up for grabs. And that is this week's Game of the Week. And that is the end of the opening drive. Stay tuned, because we have champs to award and snowflakes to award too. Oh, yeah. That's how we roll.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Hey!
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy and now begins a future one of matrimony, or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network, in association with Comey Media Incorporated, proudly present The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Hey, Eagles fan, join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast, every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids from the Block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason
Oh, yeah, where are my dogs at? It is time for us to award the grand champ for week 1 of the NFL season. And for that, Drew, it is all you.
You know, there's a lot of different people that we have to choose from this week. And it's very tough to distinguish who is the best one, in my opinion, you know, because of where we're at, you know, with the season already. But looking at this as a whole, I gotta say, I think my number one person that I'm going to go with, because the impact that he had on the game, I think I'm going to go with TJ Watt as my dog of the week this week for the Steelers. Because, you know, stats aside, not just the stats, right? But the impact that he had as a player on this game. I can't go any other way. He had a sack. He had 2 tackles for a loss. He had a fumble recovery. There were also some plays that he made an impact on that got called back due to penalty. So he would have had even more inflated numbers had he had those stick around. So I'm going with TJ Watt as my dog of the week.
I don't find that to be a problem. Okay. I like that. I like that choice a lot. And he's the type that he can influence a game. Former defensive player of the year. Yeah, no question about that. And he's already starting to campaign to actually get another one in that trophy. And hopefully he can, and hopefully he could be healthy to do so. I really, really, really tried to look elsewhere. I really did. J.K. Dobbins, it was a thought. Alvin Kamara was a thought too. There was a couple others that I was thinking, yeah, I think he needs to get it. But I gotta give this. And this is not trying to be Homer. It's just this. If this was on any other team, I would say the same thing about this guy. The running back for the Texans, Joe Mixon, in his very first start for the Texans, 30 carries, almost 160 yards. He basically set the tempo for the rest of that team, and he made CJ Stroud calm, cool, collected, and didn't have to press for much. And this is what I mean when I stress the running game sets the table for everything else. And actually, in this case, it covers up a multitude of sins per se, because really, and Drew said it earlier. He said, you have that many yards on the ground, it chews up the clock. You get time possession, you're in your direction, and you rest your defense. And I'll say it, the Texas defense just really wasn't up to snuff, in my opinion. But when that is the case, if you have a running game such as Joe Mixon, it helps out matters. So, look, I would love to see this every week. I know I won't, but doggone it, 159 yards on 30 carries. Yeah, you definitely were a dog this week, Joe. Welcome to the Texans, and I'm glad that you love being here. Yeah, I was like, man, nice. I don't want to be a homer, but I tried. I was like, man, the closest would have been the whole Bears defense, but I was like, man, I have to give it to Mixon. I had to give him the nod. Playmaker says,
I can't
Drew.
fault that one.
Yeah, and TJ Watt, wonderful choice, bro. Wonderful choice. Because every time I look at him, any game I see him, I'm transfixed on number 90. So I totally know what you mean. Transfixed on him. And he never disappoints. Playmaker says, Drew, yeah, you're not wrong. But if Lamar would just make one of those 2 basic throws, we're having a different conversation. Now, Drew mentioned the throw before the Isaiah Likely toe touching the chalk. The Isaiah Likely throw 2 plays before that, to me, I think was the miss. Big miss. Wide open. He had the defender to his back. So all Lamar had to do was just throw it anywhere but above him and out of bounds. And where did the throw go? Above Likely and out of bounds. That play was made. We will definitely be having a different conversation because that should have been 6 points. 6 says, look, it could have gotten downright ugly on the road this season for Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. You might see them fight like Jamie Foxx and LL in any given Sunday. Well, I hope not, because if that's the case, I'd feel for Lamar Jackson. Oh, my gosh. Victor, what's up, my man? I'm sorry, I'm greeting you all wrong. Vlog A3, or says, good afternoon to the TFT tribe. Bow to the big game hunter of dumpster pelicans worldwide, Sensei Drew Willingham. and the EP of all EPs, Cole Johnson. Dallas versus Cleveland was a slog. Well, in other words, he says that game was.
That's terrible.
Yes, it was. It was horrible. But
Oh, my brother, testify.
but since you're a Cowboys fan, it was on the good side for you. So, yes, congratulations to you. Congratulations to Dak getting his money. CeeDee Lamb getting his money too. And we shall see if this will help them in the long run. But let us continue onward. We got our champs awarded. Let's go to the games that matter in week 2, shall we?
Total football talk.
Welcome to Featured Attractions. And if you're unaware as to how this goes, this is when we break down 3 of the most important games of the upcoming week. Now, mind you, you did not see Monday night's game that, of course, we're televising before the 49ers and the Jets meet up. We actually predicted that game last week. So we will, of course, start opening drive with that game next week. But speaking of next week, let's look at the first one that's going to be on tap. That would be the Dolphins hosting the Bills. Now, of course, we remember the last time these two teams played, it was for the AFC East back in mid-January, or I should say back in the early part of January, where the Bills had a horrible performance the first 3 quarters, but Josh Allen willed them to a 21-14 victory over the Dolphins, giving them the AFC East and the number 2 seed, and rendering the Dolphins having to brave the cold and getting froze out in Kansas City the next week. Amazon Prime Video will have the game. It'll be Thursday, 8:15 p.m. will be the kickoff. All times are Eastern. We'll start with the Bills. Now, you mentioned Josh Allen and his left hand getting dinged up. The balanced approach I was seeing on offense seemed to really be a welcomed addition to how the Bills were attacking the Cardinals. Can the Bills sustain this balanced approach of Josh Allen for sure, and the defense and the offense in totality against the Dolphins?
They can, but at the same time, the Dolphins played a team this past week that gave them they were a little bit more competition, because you look at what the Arizona Cardinals were last year in comparison to what the Jaguars were last year. They didn't really have much competition in comparison, and you struggled with the Cardinals throughout that game in week 1.
Yep.
So when it comes to the Bills, I'm not feeling as good about them as I would for the Dolphins right now.
Well said. And I think they should not have struggled against the Cardinals, but the fact that they did, that is an alarm. But it's probably going to have to take that balance for them to do that. But the Dolphins can force them out of that balance like they did the Jaguars. Now, to the Dolphins, and speaking of them, they struggled and got out to a sluggish start, but then they turned it on at the end, and they got the victory at the last possible second. Will the Dolphins get out to a faster start than they did Sunday?
I think they have a really good chance to do that. You look at the amount of points that the Bills gave up against the Cardinals, gave up 28 points,
Yep.
and you're playing a better offense this week than you did
Right.
in the previous week. Yeah, I think the Dolphins have a really good chance to get off to a really good start in week 2.
And I think it would bode well for them, considering the weaponry that they do have, and the familiarity with the Bills they have as well. So, yeah, I agree with you there for sure. All right, so in this game, who do you have between the 1-0 Dolphins and the 1-0 Bills?
I'm taking the Dolphins in this game. If I were to throw a number on it right now, I'd say, they're going to put up a good amount of points against this Cardinals team and actually hold the Cardinals. I think I'm going to go 34-17.
And that would be the Bills. I I'm with you. I'm gonna go with Dolphins. I think they'll go to 2-0. I'm not the jury is still out on the Bills defense for me, and the jury also is still out for me as well on the on who is going to be catching these passes for Josh Allen on a continuous basis too on offense. So I think there's a little too much inconsistency in terms of who's going to be the one to step up, because you can't rely on someone like Von Miller right now. I mean, the dude's 35. And if that's going to be your best defender, not saying he's horrible, I'm just saying the tread on the tire is almost worn. So yes, I say the Dolphins. Yeah. Sunday 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox will feature the Saints. They're 1-0 off of their 47-10 mollywhopping of the Panthers. They take on the Cowboys, who also did a mollywhopping over in the Rust Belt, 33-17 over the Cowboys, over the Browns. Now, the Saints played a wonderful game. I mean, they probably will play the most complete game of their whole year yesterday. But was the overall team success a product of playing the Panthers?
Yes, it absolutely was. And based on what we said earlier, there is no shadow of a doubt that any team that plays the Panthers this year is going to look like they're having their best game of their life.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if the Saints think that they're going to go into Arlington and have the same type of game they did against the Panthers, yeah, they'll have another think coming for sure. And speaking of the NFC East champs, defending NFC East champs, the offense was the defense came to play, but the offense was opportunistic. I think that's the best way I could put it. But once again, that running game just wasn't there. Can the Cowboys get their running game in gear in any way, shape, form, or fashion?
That's all I got to say about that. No.
I love it. I love it.
And I'm being spiteful because Victor actually wants to talk today in the chat. So, yes.
Being spiteful, Lord. Okay,
yes.
Fine. Lord, you were so messy. Playmaker says, look, Cole didn't pick Mixon, will have a problem for Dog of the Week or Grand Champ. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Victor says, look, I think the Dolphins have more dynamic offense than the Bills do. I'm also going with the Dolphins, he says. The monumental missteps in coaching cannot continue against the Saints. I agree. But yes, that running game. Ezekiel Elliott is your number one back. I'm sorry. You who do you have coming out of this 2-0 between the Saints and the Cowboys?
Derek Carr plays like he did this past weekend. The game's going to be close. It's going to be a lot closer than them playing, against the Browns in week 1. However, based on certain things that we saw out of the Cowboys in week 1, if they can make even a slight adjustment with their running game and get a little bit more production out of Zeke and the other no names they got around him, then they've got a decent chance to win this game. And that's barring any setbacks with any like turnovers and so on and so forth. But if the Saints play like they did in week 1 or any better, then they could possibly have their number as well. I mean, it could go either way at that point, but I think I'm going to have to side with the Cowboys on this one.
Yeah. I don't see them putting up 47 points, obviously. I don't see them executing as well against the Cowboys as they did against the Panthers, because you are dealing with an athletic side of the ball in defense. I mean, heck, they're coming off of putting Deshaun Watson to the turf 6 times. So, yeah, that to me is the hiccup that they'll have. So, yes, I picked the Cowboys as well. Poor Saints. All right, Sunday night, NBC will have it. It will be the Texans' first of 2 home games they will have on NBC on Sunday night. They are 1-0. They faced off against the 1-0 Chicago Bears. 8:20 p.m. is the kickoff time. That Bears offense. Look, I give the defense mad credit. I mean, they're playing like they actually have a chance to go to Super Bowl. Not saying that they are, but they have that feverish understanding, and they play with that sense of urgency, which that's what you want defenses to look like when they play. Is it possible for the Bears offense to even infinitesimally help out the defense?
Not this season.
I mean, the run, anything.
No, I really don't think. I don't think that Caleb Williams is going to have any games over 150 passing yards this season at this rate, because unless you make some trades like you did with for Montez Sweat last year, and you make another big splash or two for your offensive line, there's no way that this offense is going to improve, but by so much. And the only way that it will is if it's playing teams that are lesser than what they have been previously playing. So no, especially not in this game and who they're playing this week. Especially, you can't make those type of mistakes against the Houston Texans team.
No, you can't. You can't. And I'll be shocked if they don't. And I'm saying that. I'm saying from the standpoint of I really want to see the Bears offensively elevate, because I just did not like what I saw yesterday offensively from them. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's not even Caleb Williams, because I figured he'd struggle. It's the other 10 that are struggling. I'm like, geez, they're horrible. Now, with the Texans, we got a chance to see them do really well with the running game. They did pretty well with Stroud spreading the ball offensively in the passing game, and the front five big uglies, they did their thing. And the defensive front, they gave Richardson a little bit of issue. My issue, though, is the secondary. Now, will the Texas secondary get a night off, and I'm putting that in quotes, playing against Caleb Williams?
At the rate that he played this past weekend, then yes, I would say that they would. But don't underestimate things just because of what happened in the previous game. They're going to have to see how the flow goes in the first half before they start making some adjustments and maybe giving some people some time off if the secondary isn't doing but so much. But as of right now, I think that they can afford to lay off the gas pedal a little bit, but at the same time, you don't want to get too comfortable, because that's when mistakes happen.
100. And that was, to me, that was the takeaway minus that I saw with the Colts. I'm like, man, it's possible they could get torched, and that is not a good sign, especially against a team that could be explosive. Now, I don't have that worry against the Bears. However, heck, they could probably come with a couple of those types of plays, and you never know it. So, what do you have between the Texans and the Bears?
Texans definitely take this game. If for some reason it's questionable towards the end, I still think the Texans win, but it's only questionable because it's like what we just talked about. They took their foot off the gas a little bit too much, and some mistakes happen.
Yeah. And I'm actually glad the Texans have this type of game, because I want them to learn that they should not take the foot off the gas. I have the Texans winning it, but I want them to learn the lesson that, yes, you may know that you have more talent than the team that's in front of you, but put them in the dirt. Don't think you can roll the helmet out on the field and get a W. And that concludes featured attractions. And, oh, yeah, I think that's something else we got to do.
Total Football Talk.
Oh, yeah! It's that time for Snowflake of the Week!
And as you can hear the excitement from my partner and my brother, yes, it is time to award the Snowflake of the Week. And since Drew is so giddy to do it, let's hear his pick.
So many teams, so many dumpster Pelicans. They played terribly in these games, and the toughest part about this week is narrowing it down to one. Okay, because there's so many players, and so many players even on one team that deserve this award, and I'm still going back and forth on who should or should not be in this conversation. But you know what I am going to do?
Mhm.
I'm going to take a certain place, a certain time, a certain existence. I'm going to take an entire set, an entire group from one team. And I'm going with the offensive line for the Carolina Panthers.
I thought that's where you were going to go.
The human turnstiles that you have, that Cole has so eloquently dubbed them as. And all they do is spin and just let anybody just pass through there and attempt to assassinate your quarterback. That's what it seems like every single time he says downset hike. And then the ball comes to him, and then he's dancing back there for his life as he has, convict after convict after convict coming after him. That's what it looks like. It looks like a prison break, a brawl in the yard is what it looks like. Except for you have the turnstiles just letting the convicts come through. Bam and bam and bam and bam and bam is what you get. That is who I'm picking this week is my snowflake of the week. And if you go back and you look at the highlights, you'll understand why.
That is if you can find them. Because the Saints beat the Panthers down like they stole something. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm having an issue as to who to pick to. Not I can't think of somebody. There's just so many.
That's where I was at.
And I'm vacillating between a few of them. But you know what? I'm going to go the petty route. Will Levis, you deserve this work.
Yeah.
Come on, brother. All right, sit down, son. Now, you would play football long enough. You had played football long enough. You know that if you have the lead in the fourth quarter, the most important aspect of the game is possession of the ball. That you should not do anything to let me not have my tongue revert back to when I was in my 20s and say it. But yeah, I mean, yes, I know you're the quarterback of the team that I could care less about. That the only time I'll root for you is if it will help out the Texans like you did in week 18 last year. Thank you, Will. You did a wonderful job. That'll probably be the only time that I'll ever root for the Titans. Otherwise, I will root against them no matter what. I'll even root against them against the Cowboys. That is how much I do not like the Titans. However, you're up 17-16. You were doing some ridiculous stuff before then anyway. You were trying to get out of the pocket. You get tackled. And I do mean you get tackled. You were leaning at a 45-degree angle and you decide to give a shovel pass. And I think in hopes of actually throwing the ball away. But you perform a beautiful shovel pass like you rehearsed it to Tyreek Stevenson. Oh, and Tyreek Stevenson is not on his team. That is the cornerback for the Bears. I mean, it in his waiting arms. And he had nothing but green in front of him and the navy blue wall that's at the end of that end zone that he could see. I mean, you know better than this. I can't even say rookie mistake. That is something that you wouldn't do in high school, let alone college, let alone as a rookie in NFL.
Nope.
Look, as a Texas fan, it made me smile. But as an arbiter of this game and as an analyst of the game, it really did sicken me because you should not do things like that. You shouldn't hurt your team, but hey, what do I know? Oh well. You're 0-1, and you were 0-1 in such grand fashion. And look, I also love the interception you threw and the possession afterwards to seal the game. But come on, man. Shuffle pass, pick six. You got to do better than that. Lord have mercy. This might as well go to break. We'll be right back. Goodness gracious. And
Later, the post game. But coming up next, the 2-minute drill. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated. Creating content magic in the real world.
In a world where chronicles of the past are brought to the streams, whether the content is relatable or completely beyond your realm of life, there is no shadow of a doubt that this show is absolutely full of shenanigans. Get ready for
D. Willie in the evening.
this Sunday at 10:05 p.m. Eastern.
Exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ D Willie 87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie the Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. If you want your Commanders to be repped right, well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Tuesday at 1:05 p.m. Eastern, 12:05 a.m. Central on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers, right side, commanders. Where my soldiers, left side,
welcome back to Total Football Talk with Drew Willingham. I am Cole Johnson. Glad to be with you. You are now inside the 2-minute drill. And before we get there, to the tribe we go. Victor says, look, I don't want to end up back on the milk carton senseis. Well, hey. Well, it's only one sensei, but I digress. Playmaker, he says, Carolina is an FCS school, so they don't count. And he says, Snowflake of the week, try the Cincinnati Bengals, the whole team. Believe me, and I know I can speak for Drew on this one. That was one of the selections that I was running through in my mind. I'm sure that was one of the selections he was running through in his too. Because they had no business, none, to have the putrid performance they had yesterday. None. I think they took that team for granted. They saw, oh yeah, we gotta get our lick back against the Chiefs, not realizing they actually played the Patriots the week before. But oh well. Now, as we said, we are now in the 2-minute drill. And let's start, well, we already started with the Thursday game, so let us start with a Sunday afternoon game. 1 p.m. kick. And it will be the Buccaneers going to, I guess you could say, somewhat of a House of Horrors-ish moment for them. They're going back to the play the Lions. Of course, they faced off in the divisional round last year, 8 months ago. The game will be on Fox. It'll be a 1 p.m. kick. Your thoughts on who is going to come out of this one the victor, sir?
When it comes to this game right here, between the Bucs and the Lions. It's going to be a closely contested matchup. However, if the Lions, don't continue to get the production out of David Montgomery that they had in this past game, especially if Jahmyr Gibbs is struggling like he did, and they don't have a balanced running attack, Buccaneers are going to win this game. But I think the Lions will continue to build on it. They're knocking the rust off from, being off this past off season. I think the Lions will win this game, and especially with the fact of this is a home game for them, correct? For the Lions. Yeah, so it'd be their second consecutive home game. Yes, I'm going with the Lions at home.
I definitely go on the Lions. The one thing that trips me up with them, not them, the one that trips me up for the Bucs, I need to see more of a running attack from them. And I think if I did, I would have a better feeling for them. I haven't, so I'm not going to pick them, unfortunately. But yes, I think the Lions are going to go 2-0.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
The Colts, they are 0-1. They traveled to Lambeau Field to play on the not-so-frozen tundra of Lambeau Field to play against the equally 0-1 Packers. Also, this game's on Fox, 1 p.m. kick. Of course, again, all times of Eastern. Your thoughts and who you see coming out of this, Victor?
This game's a little tougher for me to pick because, we don't really know the severity of Jordan Love's injury at this point. Yeah. So if he's okay to play and we see him play like we did in this past week's game, they're going to beat the Colts at home. Even though both of these teams are coming into this matchup 0-1. Right. I did like what I saw out of Anthony Richardson, though, so I think it's going to be close. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win. But if Jordan Love is fully able to come back and play at the level that we expect him to, I got the Packers at home.
Yeah. If Love is not going to be on the shelf, yes, I think this weekend the Packers will win. I'm going to act as though he's not. So since that's the case, Malik Willis, come on down and take this L. I think the Colts are going to take it. I want Love to start, but I don't think he will.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
All right, CBS game at 1 p.m. kick. The Titans 0-1. They're at home. They play the New York Jets right now at present. Because their game has not been played yet, they are 0-0. Who do you have in this game, sir? Oh, and the game's in Nashville.
It's kind of tough based on the circumstances where we're at the time of our recording because we haven't seen anything of the Jets at this point. Mm-hmm. However, as long as things don't start off like they did last year for them.
Oh, gosh.
And, Aaron Rodgers is a resemblance of what we saw before that injury. I think the Jets win this game on the road in Nashville, based on certain things that we saw out of Will Levis in week 1. If he continues to turn the ball over like he did, they don't have any chance of winning this game at home. However, if he protects the ball and they establish a decent run and he gets a decent amount of blocking around him, I wouldn't be surprised if they win. However, I'm going with my heart on this one. I'm going with the Jets.
Tony Pollard actually put forth a good running performance in Chicago, and that would if I were a Titans fan, that would give me hope of something positive. And their defense really did a really good job. But of course, this was the Bears. Still, though, they did a good job. I mean, it's an NFL team, and they really did a wonderful job. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they only allowed 10 points that whole game. I will take that out of any defense playing against any NFL team. But all right, fine. I'll go with my heart on this. I'm rooting for the Titans to go 0-2. I think the Jets will win this game because I just think they just have more talent at one position, which is at quarterback, than the Titans do. I think that's just too much. Another 1 p.m. kick, another CBS game. This time is the Vikings hosting at 1-0, hosting the 0-0 San Francisco 49ers. Your thoughts and who do you see winning?
Sam Darnold will not look as good as he did in week 1. He sure as expletive won't. And for that, I've got to go with the 49ers for the road victory here. It may be close because I do like some things that I saw from the Vikings outside of the way that Sam Darnold played. If they can keep that consistency up, it'll be a close contest. However, I don't think it's going to be. And I think the Vikings are going to lose this one at home as a result.
Yeah. Playmaker said what I read actually. I saw 3-6, but he says Love is out 4 to 6 weeks. Malik Willis is your man. Yeah, and of course we're talking Packers here.
Then I'm going with them to take the L there. Then
yeah. So yeah, and I'm definitely rolling with the Colts taking the dub. I'm with you. I did not see the Vikings playing the same type of game against the 49ers, even though this is at home, versus the Giants, even though that was on the road. I don't care if they're 0-1 or 1-0. The 49ers should have this game because they have the superior talented team over the Vikings, and this should not be an issue for them or a challenge, really.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
All right, another 1 p.m. kick. Your beloved Commanders, they have their first home game at 0-1. They have the 0-1 New York Giants coming to Landover. So, how much trash are you going to be talking to Wise El Jefe, who's a Giants fan, and who's going to win this game?
When it comes to this game right here, we talked about the downfall of the Giants, and especially with the way that Daniel Jones was playing in this game this past week, I don't see them getting any better, and I think that they're going to make the Commanders look like they're a team that should be destined for the playoffs this year, even though that's not going to happen. I got the Commanders winning this one decisively, at least by double digits.
I agree with you. The Giants are horrible. They're horrible. The Commanders aren't horrible. They're just young, they're inexperienced, and they just need to grow. And if a team has any type of talent that's playing against the Commanders, they'll expose that and exploit it. The Giants won't. So the Commanders will be fine. They'll get a W. You will smile because you get a chance to see Jaden Daniels get his very first win as an NFL starter. So yeah, I think the Commanders are going to have their way with the Giants.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
All right, another 1 p.m. kick, another CBS game. Oh, I'm sorry, the previous game's on Fox. 1 p.m. kick, CBS game. The Carolina Panthers, they have their first home game at 0-1. They have the Chargers at 1-0 coming into Charlotte. Who do you have in this one?
We do have to go back and cover the Seahawks and the Patriots, just to give you a heads up on that. We skipped over that one. So the Chargers and the Panthers. Yeah, come on. The Chargers win this one on the road in Carolina. This human turnstile show back up and suit up for the Panthers for the offensive linemen. They're going to be letting everybody through to assassinate Bryce Young. And that's what's going to happen here. Not the fact that he's not going to get assassinated. Nobody's calling for that. I don't want that to happen.
No.
But he's going to get smacked around. Even if he's not at their quarterback the whole game, the next person who steps up will step down as they get smacked around. That's what's going to happen in this game. I've got the Panthers losing at home to the Chargers. Chargers start the year off 2-0.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh, he has the team going in the right direction. I don't see that changing, even though this is a 10 a.m. 10 a.m. in L.A. start time on Sunday. I don't think that matters. The Chargers easily against the Panthers and over the Panthers.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
I did note what you said. I will get to that in a moment. The Jaguars, they are on 1. They have their first home game. They are hosting the equally horrible 0-1 Browns. Games on CBS. Kickoffs at 1 p.m. Who do you have in this one?
With this game right here, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher to call than we would expect. However, I think the Browns will start the year off 0-2. Jags win this game at home, but it's going to be less than double digits for the score.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tightly contested game. Yeah, I agree. I think the Jaguars break on through. They win a game against a Browns team that defensively has it, but offensively does not. And it's unfortunate.
Who's giving them the business?
the CBS game, 1 p.m. kick. The Ravens, they have their first home game at 0-1. They host the 0-1 Las Vegas Raiders as they come into Baltimore. Who do you have in this one, sir?
For this one, I've got, let's say, the Ravens beating the Raiders at home. Based on what we saw out of the production for the Raiders last week, and hopefully the Ravens can get somebody else besides Lamar Jackson to run the ball. Hopefully Derrick Henry, for those of you out there in fantasy, you have him. But I have the Ravens improving to 1-1. The Raiders fall to 0-2.
Well, you heard the man. I agree 100%. I don't think the Raiders will have any fight really for the Ravens. Yeah. And I hate that for the Raiders too.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
Now, the Fox 1 p.m. kick that I did want to save until now. The Patriots have their first home game. They are 1-0. They host the 1-0 Seahawks, which, of course, again, the dreaded 10 a.m. kick for a Pacific Standard Time team. Again, games on Fox. Kickoffs at 1. Who do you have in this one?
It's the Rams and the Cardinals.
Oh, you just gonna roll through that, huh?
The Rams and the Cardinals. I'm going with the Rams with the road win here. Kyler Duty plays too much Call of Duty this week, and it affects his gameplay.
Okay. Lord, I got the Rams on that one, but the Seahawks Patriots. Who you have in that one?
Seahawks and Patriots. I think that Sam Howell might get in the game and sling the rock a little bit if Geno starts to struggle, which he will against the Patriots defense. Patriots win at home, improve to 2-0, and the Seahawks fall to 1-1.
All right. Okay. I agree with that. I think the Patriots will have a 2-0 start to as well. And yeah, I see the Rams making a mess out of the Cardinals. Fools.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
All right. Oh, and that Cardinals-Rams game, 4 or 5 p.m. kick on Fox. 4:25 p.m. kick has the first Broncos home game. They entertain the 1-0 Steelers. That's on CBS. Who do you have in this one, sir?
Steelers defense is going to smack around the Broncos offensive line. Bo Nix will struggle in this one. Unfortunately, they're going to fall to 0-2. It's not going to be, entirely his fault, but this is going to be another one that's carried by the Steelers defense as they improve to 2-0.
It's going to be a rare 2-0 start for the Steelers. I agree with you. I don't think the Broncos have enough, even the altitude included, that's going to stop that Steelers defense. All the Steelers have to hope for is that Justin Fields does not turn the ball over like he did not do against the Falcons. And if he does not turn the ball over in Mile High, they'll be 2-0.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
All right, and the other 4:25 p.m. kick on CBS, it has the Chiefs at 1-0. They are at home in Arrowhead. They are welcoming the 0-1 Cincinnati Bengals. Now, do you think the Bengals will take their head out of the butts and actually beat the Chiefs? Or do you think that they will go home back to Cincy 0-2?
Cue No Chance, the song by somebody, well, the song for somebody who's about to have a Netflix special come out here in a couple weeks.
No chance.
Yeah. Kansas City wins this one at home, and it will not be as close of a contest as they won in the previous week. They will improve to 2-0, and this other team known as the Bungholes are going to fall to 0-2.
I agree. The Bengals do not stand a chance at all. I think the Chiefs, I think they have a bad taste in their mouth about the Bengals in the first place, since they've seen them a few times in the playoffs, even though they have had success against them in the playoffs. Still, I think they'll be prepared and motivated enough, and they'll probably smile to hang another L on the Bengals.
Hey, Who's giving them the business?
And then we get to the Monday night game. No, not tonight. Next Monday night. The Philadelphia Eagles, they have their first home game. Yes, I know. Technically, they were the home team in Sao Paulo, but they have their first official home game in South Philly. They host the 0-1 Falcons. ESPN has that game. It's an 8:15 p.m. kick. Who do you have in that one?
This one's a little bit tougher than you would expect because I feel like with the Falcons getting smacked in the mouth in this past week to the type of team they lost to, when you would thought going into that they were going to win, that they're going to have some more fire in the belly to light it up, because they cannot afford to start 0-2 with the hype that they had on them in this offseason. But they're not at home. So because of that, I'm going to have to go with the home team. I'm going to have to go with the Eagles in the bright lights of Monday Night Football. And unfortunately, the Falcons are just going to have to fall to 0-2 when they should be falling to 1-1 at this point.
I agree. I think the Eagles will they'll go to 2-0. The Falcons need to give the Eagles some diet of Bijan Robinson to even have a remote chance of winning. For some reason, I think they're going to have just as much of a difficulty of pulling out a W as they did yesterday, because I think the Eagles are just too good for the Falcons. Well, that concludes this week's 2-minute drill. I hope you enjoyed that. And join us. Who do you have in type your answers in the chat? Who do you think is going to win all the games for week 2 of the 2024 season?
Total football talk.
As long as it's one. That's great. I love it.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we present the post game. Now, if you're unaware or unfamiliar with this part of the program, this is where both of us give our final thoughts as to what transpired the week prior. And so with his final thoughts and his post game, I cede the floor to Drew.
You know, there were many games that we had from this past week that, we didn't see going the way that they did. We got to look at, first and foremost, the production out of the offense for the Minnesota Vikings. I, of course, have been on the record for talking smack about the Giants in the past, but I didn't even forecast it going the way that they did. And the Giants are going to have a very, very, very long season. Same thing goes for the Falcons for getting exposed the way that they did, even though they're probably playing against the number one defense in the league, in my opinion, at this point. Even though some could say, well, the number one defense should go to the Kansas City Chiefs because they are the two-time back-to-back defending champions of the past couple of years. But for right now, I'm going to say that that goes for the other team mentioned for the Steelers. Good on the Texans for what they did this past week against the Colts, but still a long season. You got to build on that. Just like, Cole was saying in his take earlier, this is going to be a good test for them to see how things go going forward. Other than that, looking at how things have already started out for week 1, I know we came into this show last year and we were really hyped about the 2023 season because of the way things, started off then. But I think I'm even more excited now in 2024 based on the way that things have already started out this season. We've had more deflated teams already in the start of week 1 based on the hype that we saw from this past offseason. And we had one team in the Cowboys who were used to coming out and, taking the hype and completely taking a nosedive. This time, they took all the shade they've been getting over the summer and they actually built on from that. So if that can be something that can be done, consistently throughout the season, we're in for one exciting 2024 season in the NFL. There's still a lot more games to go, and nobody can drink too much of the Kool-Aid after what they saw in week 1. But what I can say is this. I'm excited about this season going forward. and I'm looking forward to talking about this again next week with my man Cole Johnson. Also, if you guys didn't check out the debut episode of Total Football Talk Extra, it's a show that's primarily going to be on Friday afternoons, but it could change from week to week for times and days, depending on personal schedule, depending on the selection of the guests for that week and what we're talking about. For the upcoming future, when it comes to TFT Extra, it'll be primarily talking about Canadian football, because when NFL ended last year, luckily we had football to talk about from the following week on until this past week, when we were talking about the UFL and we were talking about the XFL. That's what kept this show going. And to the fact that we have 54 consecutive weeks of this show, Total Football Talk. But as you saw with this show going as long as it did today, there's no way we could fit CFL and NFL coverage in one show and not keep it within a certain time frame. So the gears were spinning upstairs. You know, I didn't want to completely name a different show. I didn't want to do a totally different show, because I wanted something to be like a spinoff, to where it could be a way for us to do a reaction show from a game, jump on for 20 or 30 minutes, talk about something if we have the time to do it. A platform for not only myself to talk additional football, but for Cole as well, if you wanted to, and to utilize that to talk more football, even though it seems like we can't talk enough football sometimes on the main show. But with this, that gives us the platform to do so. So from here until the end of the CFL season, in a couple months, we have Ryan McCarthy coming on each and every week. We may, depending on the timing of it, be able to talk a little college football, as by the time CFL ends, things start heating up within college football, to where we can talk about those teams that are ranked and the ones that have fallen off, you know, the cliff at that point. Who knows? Many ideas are circulating, but what I can tell you is it will be an extra bonus show of Total Football Talk, at least for the next couple of months, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Solid thoughts. Thank you, sir. And I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, wonderful debut of Total Football Talk Extra, by the way. I got a chance to witness what you and Ryan talked about. And well, yeah, you two have always had great chemistry. Was not surprised. And again, Ryan, that dude knows his Canadian football. Wow. And I'm not saying to hype him up. I'm saying it because that's just the truth. And you're not so bad yourself. You picking up the stuff too.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. Where should I begin? You know, I can't help but to think that yes, the stuff on the field is wonderful, and it's great to actually see action on the field again. It's, you know, and also we have an understanding as to what it looks like when we see the NFL play and what it looks like when we see every other brand of football played. It is a different brand, and there's no question the NFL is the highest brand of football that you can get. It is the most elite type of football that you will ever see. I mean, we have the UFL, we have the CFL, we even have arena leagues, and all that is great. All of that is wonderful. And to a person, well, to people who love football in general, it's great to have that fixed and to have that Jones be satiated. But even with college football and the pageantry and the prestige and the spectacle that it is, and it is unique all to its own too, even more unique than it is the NFL, the action on the field pales in comparison in the college ranks to those of the pros. But as wonderful as it was to see the action on the field, I can't help but to think about the off the field stuff that it's making me shake my head a bit. You know, you had Rashee Rice, who played Thursday, and for those who don't know his story, fresh, and I do literally mean fresh, off of when he won his very first ring, because he was a rookie last year, for the Chiefs. 1 month later, he decided to play Fast and the Furious in Dallas, where he was speeding down I-35 as if he was either Vin Diesel or the late Paul Walker or Tyrese or Ludacris. Pick any of them. Heck, you can pick Michelle Rodriguez, any one of them. But he acted as though he wanted to drag strip somebody, and he wrecked the car, ended up killing somebody. The sadder part about it is he left the scene. And the report was, well, this car was in this wreck, and it actually was registered to, this football player. I'm like, no, he did not flee the scene. And so, yes, I have heard the back talk of, well, he has to be suspended. Well, in due time, he will be. And I will say, I think the Shield dropped the ball in not having him be suspended at any point before now, but you know that day is coming. Then we witnessed yesterday Tyreek Hill, who got pulled over for a driving violation, a past driving violation, and he was treated like a thug. I mean, pulled out of his car and was thrown to the ground. And Drew mentioned this earlier. The cop actually ended up being suspended for the actions that he did against Hill. But it's these types of incidents that you're thinking, I hope it doesn't overshadow what we're seeing on the field, because the product on the field still is world class, and the stuff on the field shouldn't overshadow it. Now, should we ignore it? No. But it takes away from the beauty of why we do appreciate the sport as it is. Oh, and another thing that doesn't have anything to do with police blotter. Will you all please, and I'm talking about you fake tough, everything is about football, no matter the conversation, even if it's about loving your wife or girlfriend or your mama or the job, when everything has a football assignment to it. And yes, I'm addressing you ladies too. Will you all please stop belly aching about Taylor Swift being on TV? You see her maybe 1 minute at the most out of a 3-hour game with the Chiefs, yet you would think that she is plastered all over the screen and we miss plays. Stop. It's not that bad. It's not bad at all. And if you understand that, hey, the more she's on the screen, the more those Swifties get brought to the NFL, and you realize the Shield wants to make that money. And so when you realize that, you shouldn't even bellyache at all. What's that saying that Booker T said a long time ago? Oh, yeah. And I heard this long before Booker T. Don't hate the player, hate the game. But we don't want to hate the game that's on the field. We want to love that game. You just got to hate the people who complain about it. But keep on, and I hope everything is good with all of you and all the players too. Here's to an exciting 2024 NFL season.
As long as it's one. I went to go find one yesterday, but I wasn't able to look at it tomorrow.
It's great. I love it.
I was getting too.
I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
All right. Well, before we go, my man, our man, Cool McCain, he's in the house. He says, look, and of course, Eagles Elite podcast. You can watch him 8:30 Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Central on the Eagles Elite podcast YouTube channel. He says Hurts needs to stop the turnovers. He says we need no more until the bye. And for those who don't know, the Eagles bye is the week of October 6th. So he's saying the rest of the month he should not see Hurts have any turnovers. And I agree. The 2 picks and the 1 fumble, yeah, that needs to stop. And he also says, I'd rather see Swift than the Trump lover. He was ice cold cool. You were ice cold, bro. Any final thoughts, sir, before we do let the tribe go, sir? I'm sorry. Let me say this again. Any thoughts without the mute button?
It was probably better that I was muted in that moment. No, I'm good to go. Everybody, as always, stay safe out here in these streets.
All right. Well, if that is it, well, then we thank you for liking. We thank you for sharing. We thank you for even commenting. Thank you, tribe. We thank you for commenting even in the replays as well. And we thank you for hitting that notification bell so you can catch all content that comes from the Surtopa Media YouTube channel. And he has a lot of stuff coming. CGR. Hopefully we'll see In or Out come back. Deal and Eden is supposed to come back next month. Duval Dive and so many other wonderful bits of entertainment from that channel. And you have the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel. You got Mentality. You have the Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. You have even this one coming on as well. And I hope you all enjoy it. For Drew Willingham, my man D. Willie, I am Cole Johnson, here to say in parting, as we always do, in life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And always remember, you got to keep playing until the whistle blows.
And as always, stay safe out here in these streets.
Thank you. If you want to catch Drew, all you have to do is go on to these wonderful social media platforms. Surtopa_media on Instagram, Surtopa_media on X, _Surtopa on TikTok, and of course, Surtopa Media for YouTube. And if you want to reach yours truly, all you got to do is go to flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That's flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. Until we do this again Monday, see ya.
Ain't nobody calling me. Delete! 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 Delete!
Thank you guys for a wonderful show. And for you Cowboys fans, and I've already heard it, you all are not going to the Super Bowl because of one performance. You did that last year, and it was an even bigger performance than that. No. Temper, temper, temper. You still have 16 more games in the regular season before we even talk about if you do make it to the Super Bowl. Bye, everybody.